When this village shepherd boy comes to the city, the guards immediately block his path. They refuse to believe that a dirty beggar like him is a wizard. To expose him, they bring Turan to the heir of the town, who's also a noble wizard. She doesn't trust our boy either when he refuses to say which noble family he's from and decides to check for herself. Azella releases her mana and asks our boy to show her his. Turan usually hides his power, but this time his eyes light up, and he releases it with full force. The two overwhelming mana auras collide with such force that they make the guards and maids fear for their lives. But the next second, it all ends. The wizard girl is left with her hands trembling after sensing such overwhelming mana from our boy. She then steps closer and bluntly asks if he wants to marry her. But Turan isn't interested in such proposals at all. Still, even after the rejection, she invites him on a hunt to help them deal with a monster lurking in the nearby forest. Azella gathers the guards and together they set off. Soon enough they find a crashed carriage, and before they can investigate the scene, a huge yeti jumps out of the bushes and attacks the guards. It throws rocks with such force that the guards' armor can't protect them. Azella commands the remaining guards to attack, but the creature is simply too fast. It just runs off. Suddenly a pebble flies right past Azella's cheek like a meteor and past all the guards. It hits the monster and kills it instantly. Shocked, everyone looks behind them, only to see that it was Turan who threw it. So, who's this village boy who's shocking even the nobles with his power? This little boy called Turan is a wizard, and he gets his powers as soon as he hits 10 years old. He can easily manipulate any object around him. He happily tells his mother about his new powers. But much to the boy's disappointment, his mother is terrified, especially when he tells her how he used telekinesis and how he can create fire and wind too. In complete horror and anger, his mother demands that he stop using magic. Our boy is confused, not knowing what he did wrong, but his mother sits down to have a serious talk with him. She asks if he wants to live with her for a long time, and like any little boy would, Turan says yes. Using that as a hook, she forces him to make a promise, ordering him never to use his powers again and never to show them to other people. Turan feels uneasy and asks why, so his mother tells him the infamous story of the noble and the knight. The story is familiar to the boy. He knows that people with special powers are considered wizards, even if they are nobles or knights. However, nobles and knights are very different. The nobles in this world are actual descendants of the divine people, a race called the Freyans, who vowed to save old humanity. Knights, on the other hand, are descendants of those same nobles whose blood has been mixed with regular humans. Turan already knows this story, and his mother uses it to explain that there's a clear distinction between nobles and knights, even if they share similar powers. Then she reveals the real reason why he should never use his abilities. His father was a badass knight, and Turan inherited his powers. Several evil nobles outside the town treat knights like slaves and see them as nothing more than tools. That's why Turan's mother fears for his safety and urges him to hide his abilities forever, so he'll never suffer the same fate. That was their promise. 8 years fly by after that conversation, and he's now a young man. Turan still upholds his promise. He has absolutely no desire to reveal his powers as a wizard. In fact, he doesn't even have any ambition to leave his home and their sheep, even though his mother passed away some time ago. Even there, his life is far from easy. One peaceful morning, our boy receives a pretty angry visitor banging on his door, like that one dude in Spider-Man 3 asking Peter Parker for rent. Turan opens the door to mog these cavemen, who were looking at him like he cursed at them or something. Yawning, he quickly assessed the situation and realized that they were tying the death of village elder Rabus to his name. Threatening him, the villagers grab him by the collar, roaring that he's the one who hurt the village chief before tossing him in the open to be devoured by monsters. It's a cute theory, and our boy understands their efforts to frame him. After all, the most senior man in the whole village died a pitiful death, while the young men didn't even have the courage to face the monster. Turan points out the reality, how these clowns are merely shifting the blame at him for their own cowardice. Rage-baited, Sideburns tries to deck him with a punch, only for our boy to duck that shit with finesse. He propels himself right back and headbutts the guy's freaking nose in, reflecting how magic is the most convenient tool in the world. Everything he wants comes at the cost of mana. He doesn't even have to start a fire to move the world. With just a whispering command to fall over, he takes down another guy, then goes on to dodge the swing of the third. Turan is so good at using magic that he does it without anyone noticing, just enough for his opponents. No, I mean, his victims don't die. Kashimo 2.0 bashes another guy's head, promising to dominate every single one of his opponents. He destroys them left and right, and just like that, all of them are on the ground while he's dusting himself off. And that's how he's been concealing his identity as a wizard a secret. Turan scoffs that these idiots should have saved their energy for the old man's funeral, and then turns to face the ladies, asking if they want to catch these hands too. They assure him that they're just here to check on him, but our boy isn't a simp and tells them to take these bodies away. Here's what really happened few days ago. The village chief got news about existence of a terrifying monster found at the village entrance. The creature's body was drenched in black with a size as enormous as a house. The chief planned to take care of the monster by hiring a wizard to exterminate it, and until then, adults and children were told not to enter the forest. Coming across a monster as a regular human means certain death, because only wizards are powerful enough to kill them. Rabus decides to pay a visit to a kid on Hizaril Hill, the shepherd Turan. The kid lives a boring life, repeating the same loop every day until the old man comes around to get on his nerves. Turan has no motivation to follow his orders because soon after his mother's passing, the old fart tried to steal their sheep. Turan thinks Rabus came here for the same matter and tells him to fudge off, but this matter is more important to the elder, who has come to inform him of the appearance of the magical beast. Its sighting has been confirmed, but strangely enough, Turan is unafraid, even when he's the one most threatened. Rabus assures him that the wizard will be on the way, and instead of thanking him, Turan reminds him to get lost, knowing that the boomer is only interested in his sheep more than the shepherd's life. Monsters of this world are defined as beasts with magic. They are the answer to wizards of humanity. But Turan is excited to see a wizard for the first time, curious to know just how powerful they will be. Suddenly, the smell of blood startles him, and he finds himself tracking down its source in the forest. The outcome is brutal. Budget Kashimo discovers the elder split like a Kit Kat like Gojo. Unfazed, he realizes that ordinary animals couldn't possibly cause such a bloodbath, so the rumors of the monster must be real. At once, he senses dark mana from his surroundings as the gargantuan leopard arrives for its next prey. Our boy stares him down, and though monsters are supposed to be stupidly powerful, some strong wizards can defeat them with just a single word. Turan looks at the intimidating kitty and commands it to die, immediately sending the creature miles back, an ability that reminds me of Inumaki's cursed speech. The command isn't enough as the monster lunges at him again, but after repeated attempts, Turan fails to stop the beast. Going on a rampage, the giant leopard smashes everything in its path. Turan decides to switch things up a notch, and picks out a stone alongside his trusty whip, choosing to use his skills as a shepherd. First, he reinforces the tiny stone, next he makes it faster, before whipping it around and giving it form, and right before shooting, he commands it the ability to pierce its target. The stone is launched with a massive propulsion, spiraling its way to its target at a laser speed. The beam severs the leopard's face, but it's still not enough to deal a kill shot. Retaliating, the monster tries to finish its target with an overwhelming lunge, providing no room to escape. But our boy planned for this, as he recalls the same stone back from the sky, this time aiming for the creature's head, bashing its skull wide open. That attack proved successful in laying waste to the titanic monster, a first time for the young Turan, making him wonder if he should toss away its corpse into the river or something. Turan's pretty nonchalant about it, and doesn't give a flying fudge about the ants of the townsfolk. He'll just leave the monster's corpse here and let them clean it up. Back in his home, our boy reflects on the reality of the village's shaky position. They're gonna treat him even worse now when it comes to his trades, but he's fine with that, so long as he can beat them black and blue for a fair deal. While he's contemplating those thoughts, Bro's door starts banging again, making him wonder if these idiots have truly lost it this time. He smacks open the door, this time expressing anger, but to his shock, there's only one man, cladded in uniform. The man apologizes for being such a bother. Apparently he's just a traveler who wants some help. This unexpected shift assures Turan, who apologizes for his rambling, revealing how he met some annoying people earlier. Hilariously, our boy feels really insecure about his manners, because this dude is way too nice compared to the shitty people in his town. Aside from that, he eyeballs the man's sword, and asks if the guy is looking for an inn. Bro's stomach loudly grumbles, which gives Turan the answer as he invites the man inside. Here he makes a whole bunch of stuff and serves it to the traveler, who literally starts devouring. They've been talking, and the traveler is shocked to note that Turan doesn't talk to the people in town. Our boy shares his story of never doing anything beyond his shepherd duty on the hills. Then he also doesn't get many tourists. The traveler observes him calmly and finds intrigue in Turan, acknowledging how the shepherd has excellent manners for his craft. Turan shares how he learnt politeness from his late mother, who unfortunately passed from an illness only a few years back. The traveler offers his condolences, and assures the boy that his mother must have been really proud of him. even thanking Turan once more for his hospitality. It's our boy's turn to ask the questions, so he inquires what brought this guy here. It doesn't take for the traveler to reveal that he actually came here to kill a monster puma, and then he drops the bombshell of him being a wizard. Of course, Turan knew that a wizard was going to come to this village thanks to Rabus. The traveler confirms this and decides to ask a question of his own, sharing how he clearly senses a monster in this area, but there's not one in sight. Then there's the fact that Turan knows about the Elder and the case of the monster, and yet the boy has no fear of running away. The main target of that monster should be Turan himself, so the traveler is shocked by how calm he is. He deduces how the boy is oddly brave for a shepherd, and then coldly questions his real identity. Let's go back in time for Turan's conversation with his mother, who really wanted to know why he couldn't reveal his secret. She feared the existence of bad or evil nobles, because to them, knights are just like dogs they keep for fun. Sure, they'll treat knights with love, maybe even family, but if it comes down to it, they'll sacrifice their own knights like cattle. It's a scary life that the boy's mother really didn't want for him, and once again, she demanded him to keep his powers a secret, because if other wizards found out, they could turn him into a dog too. And that's the main issue right now. Bro is haunted by his mother's words, and because this guy discovered his secret, Turan is already plotting on killing him for his own preservation. The man questions why the so-called shepherd refuses to answer, but before hell could break loose, the guy goes back into his silly tone, acting like he was making a joke. The funny thing is, our dense protagonist genuinely believes him too, admitting that he's terrible at sensing humor. The traveler apologizes for making a bad joke, while Turan shares his shock because no one's ever called him a wizard before. They playfully banter it out to not escalate the situation, so the wizard offers his hand, introducing himself as Kiorn, a wanderer. Turan shakes it well and introduces himself as a shepherd, a boy who is soon going to turn 18. The other guy warmly and shockingly reveals that he'll be freaking 75. Bro's got the youthful genes of a god. Apparently it's because wizards live longer on average and age slower too, which makes Turan ask how this guy became a wanderer in the first place. Apparently Kiorn served the Arabian family for 60 whole years before leaving. Later in life, Kiorn decided he loved being a nomad without a home. Their harmless chatter continued. Turan felt at ease with this person and found himself enjoying their talk way more than he thought. Time flew and the sun came all the way up, prompting Kiorn to head off. As a thank you, he leaves an Arabian silver coin, one of the purest for its value. The young man accepts it with pride and wishes him well for his hunt, but Kiorn is confident that the two of them will run into each other more often if he drops by. That mellow conversation between two homies aside, Turan continues his shepherdly duties, using his magic spell to control and gather the sheep. They flock to him, but he's still in awe of his encounter with the wizard. It's been a long time since he felt comfortable speaking to someone like that. The kind of humor Kiorn had made it really easy too. He genuinely struck our boy as one of those amazing people, which is crazy because his mother told him that knights were bloodthirsty people who only hunted others on behalf of evil nobles. Unfortunately, Turan has absolutely no idea how to reveal that there's no monster left on Hisaril Hill, because this man killed them all already. Kiorn is looking around himself, observing how he can't feel a monster's presence despite signs of a battle. This makes him wonder if the creature had already been hunted down, but the real question is, who even managed to kill it, and why would the Elder call him if he had another wizard? Still, he's just happy that the monster is killed. That's the ultimate goal after all. Suddenly, the wizard's senses dial up to an 11 as he turns back, confronting a creature with flesh cut open. This is actually the wraith or the phantom of a monster, the same creature that Turan already killed. The knight is shocked and in horror, not knowing the cause, while the wraith attempts to strike him down with its claw. Kiorn dashes away from the powerful stomp, internalizing how monsters always turn into wraiths if their mana isn't dispersed after being killed. But any wizard with a basic knowledge of hunting should know that fact. Dashing upwards, the wizard knight deduces that the person responsible for killing the puma has to be a wizard, but someone inexperienced. But the confusing part is that beginner knights should have this knowledge, and if they don't, they shouldn't be skilled enough to kill a beast this huge. He wonders if the wizard had some ulterior motive, and I kid you not, Bro pulls out fucking Thunder Arrow, reminding me of that badass Sukuna panel. The bolt is fired at thunderous velocity, nailing its way to the wraith, only to get completely nullified. Kiorn didn't anticipate this surprise. The only time this could happen is if the monster's mana is far superior than even his own. Suddenly, the wraith disappears into the wind, making him wonder if the creature is trying to counter his magic with its own. Emerging from the wizard's own shadow, the monstrous curse erupts from behind, flanking Kiorn with a heavy blow. The wizard knight barely survives with his arm slashed, realizing that this kind of creature is far stronger than the average knight. Dashing away, he takes his distance, questioning how the hell a monster wraith this powerful even popped up here. From the looks of things, Kiorn doesn't really have anything up his sleeve and thinks he's dead meat. Mustering one last attempt not to die worthlessly, the knight strategizes an all-out attack to kill both of them. He concentrates all of his mana into a single hand with the intention of stabbing the creature as soon as it attacks him. The wraith initiates its strike, ushering the wizard to load up his punch and dash towards his certain death. It seems like the end is grim for the climax of this battle, until a blue light beams its way from the forest and obliterates the creature with a pointed strike. The wizard is at a loss for words, while the wraith goes down after a single hit. Turan asks if he's alright, exposing himself, and hilariously Kiorn taunts him for having a sick sense of humor calling himself a shepherd. They're both wizards, but the senior knight is confused why the boy didn't share such information. Watching him go blank, the knight changes his question and asks why Turan bothered to help him when he could have easily walked away. The boy is reminded of their conversation back when he still had him at his place. Turan really wanted to know why the wizard knight came to kill the monster when he could easily earn money without risking his death. The knight laughed, sharing that the people of the village are pitiful. They had absolutely no protection going on for their lives. Turan argued that it wasn't Kiorn's fault, but the senior explained to him how wizards inherit the power of a god. And with that power, he thinks it's important to have a responsibility to protect ordinary people. Of course, not every wizard shared his philosophy as they each had their own way of living. Those words shine brightly in Turan's head currently, as he beams a smile, sharing that everyone has their own way of living. The cockroach of a monster somehow still ends up alive, while the knight explains how this wraith is out of their league. Its caliber is at least of a noble's threat, so the best thing they could do is help the villagers evacuate. Kiorn even offered to become bait and hold the monster for as long as he could until then. Of course, bro was talking big, but he genuinely has no tricks up his sleeve to take this creature out. Turan astonishes him, assuring him that it's all okay, implying that he hasn't even gone all out. The realization that a young boy like him had talent rivaling mages baffled the veteran knight. Right now, he wasn't witnessing a naive person's outrage. He was witnessing absolute cinema and peak. Turan imbued Super Saiyan blue aura and showcased talent that could very well topple the world upside down. Turan challenges the creature to find out the depth of his own limits, but Kiorn is frightened and tells the boy to back off as they're dealing with a dangerous monster. Distracted with this talk, Kiorn has no time to dodge an incoming monstrous strike, one that is countered by our boy, who smashes the creature into the nearest structure. The knight now understands that he's only getting in the way of the boy by taking this fight. If anything, he has to settle down and keep close eye on Turan's ever-growing talent. We get to see beautiful spiral strikes spammed on the monster, but despite Turan's attempts to take it out in one go, the wraith refuses to die and gains on him again. This is when Kiorn reveals that wraiths are immune to physical attacks, which makes our boy question how he's supposed to get rid of it then. The solution is to use fire or lightning, so Turan extends his hand and concentrates a lump of fire to form on the wraith's flesh. Even something like that doesn't make the creature budge, but apparently that's not the goal at all. Kiorn reflects that for a wizard's powers to truly affect another being, they must establish an order of cause and effect. This is extremely basic knowledge, and yet, the boy doesn't even know that. This makes him slowly realize that Turan is actually the same kid who killed the original monster and stupidly left it alone to become a wraith. Long story short, this kid has never in his life ever absorbed mana before. The veteran knight instructs him to make some fire and then shoot it pointedly at the beast. Adopting this approach, our boy casts a spiral of flames in his hand, while Kiorn internalizes that for any wizard, controlling the flow of fire requires additional training. But to his sheer shock, this kid is manipulating it at his fingertips and changing forms with literally raw talent. Turan crashes the fire spear into the wraith, grilling it alive and annihilating its flesh. This is when the veteran knight urges him to keep his concentration focused, as Turan needs to make sure the fire doesn't go out. It's necessary to burn every last part of the wraith, something that the shepherd doesn't even face any difficulty doing as he vanquishes its corpse. The fight is won at last, and despite facing a monstrous wraith, one that requires a noble just for its execution, a mere shepherd with no training managed to take it down. Turan wonders if the show is over at last. while his senior urges him to absorb the mana to prevent another wraith in the future. The process is simple. The wizard just has to visualize draining energy into them. Focusing on that, our boy starts absorbing green mana emanating from its charred remains into his palm. This is the first time Turan has absorbed such mana, so his body is gushing with new internal energy. It's supposed to be an ecstatic reaction, and to both of their shock, it's his first ever time absorbing mana. It's true that mana matures with age and grows with time, but the best way to grow it is by killing monsters and absorbing their mana. However, this kid absorbed mana for the first time in his life, and performs magic at the nobles level, meaning the kid is playing the game on Minecraft creative mode. Kiorn apologizes to the boy, suddenly believing that he belongs to some kind of noble house. But the lowly shepherd urges him to take care of his wounds first. They end up going back home to patch him up. Kiorn genuinely thinks that Turan is a noble, so he feels bad for not giving him proper respect. However, our boy emphasizes that he doesn't have any such background. He doesn't even know about his father's identity, and begs this dude to stop pandering to him. Kiorn is genuinely curious why a godlike wizard is sitting on top of some hills doing nothing. And this is where he learns about the promise Turan made with his mother, until she died. She told him about the nobles, how they took advantage of wizards and discarded them. Hearing those words, Kiorn actually agrees with her wisdom, which is funny because to Turan it seems like overprotective parenting. He assures the kid that his mother had her worries right. Wizards are powerful beings who are capable of conflict. Even 20 years ago, a major war between the noble houses broke out. Arabian House, the one he served, and the Great House of Zahar went against each other, killing many in the process. 900 knights of Arabian were slaughtered from an army of 3,000, and unfortunately, the poor guy lost all his friends in that war too. Denver wanted to open a laundry shop, Hartman scolded him, and even his own wife and son died, massacred by members of House Zahar, leaving him traumatized as the sole survivor. That's why the boy's mother was correct to warn him, knights die a gruesome and meaningless death. But there was one thing she was wrong about, and that's Turan's abilities. Kiorn feels really humiliated to admit that he's a decent knight, and yet the boy managed to bring down a creature not even he could defeat. The kid isn't even classified as a knight's threat, but a straight-up noble-level warrior right now. Even then, he's at the upper-level grade. This makes Turan wonder if his mother lied about his father's background as a knight. But interestingly, Kiorn notes that sometimes, noble-class children are born among families of knights too. From the way things are going, Kiorn advises the shepherd to leave the hill and experience the colors of the real world. It's because humanity needs more knights and nobles to face the world, a world that isn't even their own. The same races that were shoved to the side by the gods are plotting their revenge again, and even worse than that, the infighting of the nobles is destroying them from the inside. In the current era, people like Turan are desperately needed, ones who can prove to be examples of great nobles. If anything, the veteran knight notes that not even Turan is satisfied with his boring life as a shepherd. This puts him in a pensive gaze, but the kid doesn't really know what he's gonna do after descending the mountain. Kiorn offers him a bunch of suggestions, to chase wealth, fame, authority, or family and friends. All of those noble pursuits are difficult to achieve on this hill. He tries to help the boy visualize his new adventurous fate. Turan could go around hunting monsters or even become an explorer in the unknown. Even better, he could get adopted by a noble family and pursue political power. After his words, Turan admits that certainly those paths would suit him better than the boring life of herding sheep. In fact, it's the first time he's had genuine curiosity for what lies on the other side. The veteran knight fears disappointing the kid by placing expectations, but promises to support him in every path imaginable. Suddenly he inquires about his bloodline ability, but Turan doesn't even know what that is. The knight remembers that he's untrained and explains the concept of a bloodline ability, which is basically a trait that each noble inherits from Freyans, their ancestors. This ability is the very deciding factor between nobles and knights. Kiorn tries to figure it out by asking if there's any spell that the boy felt was too easy for him, one that required no effort to use at all. At first, Turan thinks it's his boosted physical strength, but that's not true as mana fortifies everyone's physical attributes. The boy expresses that he has a good nose and throws stuff. Kiorn thinks those are real guesses as even the Arabian family has a common trait of throwing weapons, but he's interested in seeking a different answer. After a few guesses, the boy questions why this man is looking depressed as fuck right now. Kiorn has finally guessed the real house from which Turan is linked to. With great misfortune, the boy's abilities are linked to the Great House of Jar, one considered the family of hunters, and the same one responsible for taking everything away from Kiorn. The boy is from the same bloodline as this guy's enemies, so he doesn't know how to react, questioning if he should apologize for the acts of strangers he doesn't even know about. Watching the boy's nervous expression, Kiorn assures the kid that nothing's wrong. After all, he wasn't the cause of the war to begin with. That bloodbath is only the result of the decisions of adults, and if people fight fire with fire, the fighting won't ever end. Turan is curious if the knight has any regrets about advising him to go down the hill. Kiorn emphasizes that if the boy seeks the path of political power, he'll end up in the family of Zahar with his excellent abilities. However, he trusts the kid's character, knowing that the goodness in him is clear. He revealed his identity, something he'd kept hidden his whole life to Kiorn. So even if someone like the boy did join House Zahar, they might become the very reason wars like that never happen again. The veteran knight doesn't want the kid to get pensive about these things after all. He hasn't yet decided the family to begin with. Turan reaches the end of his contemplation, expressing his desire to go down the mountain. However, he doesn't want to leave right away. Instead, they'll wait until the man's injuries are fully healed. His words only go on to assure Kiorn how kind this kid is. To beat some time, the veteran knight teaches our boy about the necessity of mana, a substance considered the very foundation of omnipotence. The title is an exaggeration, but magic requires suitable mana for its cause. Turan is intrigued, asking for the details, and learns about the three major factors determining the difficulty of magic. The first is bloodline, the second is affinity, and the third is causality. Bloodline is determined by raw talent upon being born, especially for nobles who aren't knights. For instance, it's very difficult for an ordinary wizard to heal someone's injuries with magic, but a person beholding Ravista blood from the south could easily do so without training. That's the power of bloodline, an innate technique. As for affinity, it's like familiarity with magic. Long story short, mages perform certain tasks more easily than others, just like how Turan managed to create a fireball easily because he liked throwing rocks. Regular flames wouldn't have that kind of speed or destructive output. The final one of the bunch is causality itself, a concept even veteran knights have difficulty with. Kiorn quizzes the boy on what would happen if he killed someone with mana. Turan guesses that some kind of light would shine at best. But that's a phenomena emerging from a lack of causality. Kiorn explains that when there's no stimulus or cause for an outcome, or when the goal is exceptionally difficult to achieve, then this concept applies. Turan wraps his head around the concept, sharing that he needs to provide a cause of death, like shooting flames. Creating and shooting that fire is a more direct cause than simply lighting someone on fire, so it's like a more intentful action. The senior knight is amazed with the boy's exceptional understanding, yet Turan can't figure out why he can't control magical beasts with his words. It's actually because of the mana of the monsters. Magic isn't an easy task, and even a talented wizard like Turan is realizing that fact. The best mages know the principles of mana for each situation they require it, which makes Turan wonder if the Zahar family has special magic. Apparently they're good in stealth and tracking-based abilities. Kiorn urges the kid to try and recreate that, so Turan internalizes his thoughts to not be seen by others and disappear into nothing. The veteran knight literally sees this kid vanish into thin air, congratulating the boy for succeeding. But something about it makes Kiorn feel unease, of course, from out of nowhere. The kid emerges back into view. It's a frightening ability that the Zahar family possesses, the same ability that terrified Arabian soldiers. At first, it seems like a broken ability, but the veteran knight scoffs that it's still not invincible. He actually expresses interest in teaching the boy about a few training methods, even if he's from an enemy's family line. The fact is, the shepherd boy treated him and even saved his life. Even now, Kiorn ultimately trusts the boy's character. In the next scene, things get complicated with the shepherd packing stuff, selling his sheep, and leaving the village. The village people have issues with his sudden departure, but he doesn't give a damn and cares about pursuing his own goals. He threatens to release the sheep if they don't buy it from him, and though they can capture them, he'll make sure the sheep are going to give them a run for their money. The bald midget uncle with a botched mustache knows that this kid doesn't play with his words. He offers the full amount, and that's how the two wizards leave the small town behind for good. Turan suddenly remembers that these idiots actually owe Kiorn extra compensation money for the mission, but the wizard doesn't care about the money at all and emphasizes that he didn't kill the monster anyway. Their journey starts with a parting, because the senior knight doesn't want to team up with Turan, preferring to work alone. Turan is okay with that and genuinely thanks him for all his kindness. Both of them bid the other a happy goodbye with hopeful expectations of meeting again. Turan watched the senior knight's back fading away, and only later on did he reflect on why he didn't want the knight to speak with formality. Though he never lacked his mother's affection, all his life, Turan yearned for a father figure, a man who could serve as a role model for the kind of person he wanted to become. It's such a heartwarming way of implying that Turan wants to become kind just like Kiorn from now on. Anyway, the boy's travels continue long into the desert, where he finds a bunch of traveling merchants and decides to ask them for directions. The people take it as offense that he's blocking their path, but he simply asks for directions and learns about a city nearby called Murray. After thanking the merchants, Turan is about to leave, when suddenly, one of the imbeciles stops him, berating him for leaving without payment. To these scumbags, even information comes at a cost as they draw their weapons. They demand the boy to take his bag right off, basically confirming that these guys are a bunch of rats and bandits. Their leader shares that this is a wasteland where no one would give a damn about someone's death, so it's kindness in their eyes to spare the boy's life and only hunt his belongings. Turan realizes at this moment that these guys wouldn't even mind killing others if it came down to it, and is reminded of his experience with the veteran knight. Instead of fear, the boy feels delighted to use them as his test subjects. The bandits roar in laughter, calling the kid a show-off, until that same show-off puts their asses in a tornado with a wind spell. Instead of using direct wind, Turan shaped it efficiently and exhausted far less mana too. This makes casting spells even easier for him, while dazing his opponents effectively at the same time. Bringing out some water from his flask, he manipulates them into an icicle bullet, and honestly, the way he's hovering them is so badass. Without any fear, Turan launches them into one of the bandits, ripping his flesh. Though this spell is fine, he doesn't really like it as much. The bandits immediately offer their surrender, not having previous knowledge of the boy's powers. While the leader is creating a distraction, 3 of his goons are flanking the kid from behind. Turan casually slams his foot on the ground, erecting obelisks to take down all of them. The bandit leader watches in sheer horror as the boy killed all of his men without appearing shaken at all. Now that the positions have switched, Turan asks the bandit leader an important question. Why did they foolishly attack him without a plan, as anyone could have been a wizard? The reason is because the boy lowered his head. He was far too nice to even a bunch of rude people, making it seem like he's a commoner. Turan has learned something new again, and right when the leader thinks he's about to be spared, Bro gets cooked with an ice bullet. In a flashback, we learn that Kiorn advised the boy never to show any mercy to bandits or bad people. He needs to kill them on sight, because sparing such lives could end up threatening the lives of 10 others. The 17-year-old is done waiting around, and intends to use the same road the bandits took for his journey. On his way, one thought was haunting him, swallowing him from the inside. It's the fact that he actually killed people. Though he felt guilt, he couldn't spare them, because the veteran knight's warning rang true. Any people who exploited others without hesitation in their hearts needed to be taken care of. The tracks faded until he reached his end destination. The boy's heart settled upon the scenic view as he stepped forward to a new world. He looked down at the small city of Murray, expressing wonder. It's his first time traveling among such a large group of people. Even the buildings are different from his tiny village. The feeling is grand for the village shepherd, so he goes up to one of the fruit merchants, but clarifies that he's not a customer. Based on Kiorn's advice to look for an inn, he wants to ask directions, but the merchant is so rude to him for wasting his time, making Turan wonder if he should buy something first. The boy asks for an apple and picks out 2 ducat coins as payment. After handing the payment, the merchant tells him directions to a certain inn, one called Pub and Inn. After arriving here, he meets Lena, a gorgeous staff member who welcomes him in. He asks for a night's worth of stay, which sets him back by 16 ducat. I don't think Bro even cares about the price when he looks at her smile. After the payment, he asks Lena about a monster with a bounty nearby. Basically, his goal is to absorb mana as much as possible and earn money in the same manner. To his shock, the woman is baffled and tells him that nothing is free in this world. Again, Bro has to catch a drink just to earn information from her. Lena mentions City Hall, and when he expresses confusion, she catches on that he's from the countryside. She explains that city halls have officials working around that are appointed by the Lord, and it'll be open tomorrow for him to look for a monster bounty. Lena asks if he's a monster hunter. Again, our boy is unfamiliar with those terms. Basically, monster hunters are normal people who have the desire to become a wizard, and she doesn't realize that Bro is already a top-tier wizard. Midan, an actual monster hunter, comes around to confirm that people do in fact become wizards by killing monsters. This dude is apparently still alive after his dangerous mission and doesn't want to go down until he becomes a wizard. Expressing interest in Midan's words, Turan asks for more. Basically, if wizards can get stronger by hunting monsters, The same goes for ordinary people who can keep killing until they become one. The 4 alongside him are training to become wizards too, which makes our boy wonder if at least one of them has become a wizard yet. Apparently, there are only 3 to 4 wizards available, all working under the city lord. Midan asks if Turan has a weapon at all, and when he sees a tiny sling, he's impressed with how worn out it is. Midan is such a cool guy that he doesn't even berate him, and encourages Turan to hunt rabbit or fox monsters. These guys are in need of a shooter, so they actually pitch our boy an offer to join their team. Of course, Turan is like a smurf for these dudes, so he declines the offer and rests in his room, thinking about how he doesn't share any desire to join a team like that. It's still baffling that he left the village, not knowing what will happen from here on out. Suddenly the boy hears a sound, initiating another flashback sequence. Kiorn always told him to keep his guard up, even when it came to an inn, as the city is dangerous. Pouring some of his mana in his hand, the boy reaches for the door and slides it open. It's just Lena, who came here to make him hot because his room is too cold. Wink wink, my cultured men, because I think we all know what the author means by that. Lena plays pretty ambiguous and explains her intention. This girl is a horn dog for money and she's happy to do anything for him for the amount. She gives him a look that no man on planet Earth could ever refuse from that distance. Our boy is bricked as shit in the head while she's confused as hell. Turan remembers Sigma male Kiorn's warning not to do shit like that because prostitutes can easily take advantage of someone with STDs. Though wizards have resistance to it, the risk of passing it on makes it worse. That's why he refused her just now, sending her grumpy and horny ass down. Our Chad goes back to bed, realizing how transactional these cities are for everything. While he felt weird with Lena, he hears Midan and his boys asking about his intention of making the kid join the team. Even though the kid looks like he'd only be good for monster bait, Midan actually saw the Turan's look in his eyes and remembered his childhood self. He wanted to take care of him and invited him to the team for it. This guy is genuinely the ultimate homeboy. Overhearing that part, Turan finds some closure in the city's warmth. The following day, he goes to the city hall to meet with an official. The boy politely states his request to hunt monsters, while Kiorn's words ring to his memory again. People don't like treating each other with kindness, finding no reason to pursue it in the first place. In order for someone to respect you, he told the boy to just reveal his secret of being a wizard. Then he'll get permanent respect. The official presently hands the boy a poster, describing the details of a crow monster. Even a simple question earns the boy a shitty response from the official who's got to stick up his ass. The official tells him that a monster's corpse is necessary for confirmation, and if the boy doesn't exorcise a monster after its death, there's a death penalty according to city laws. After all, Turan himself knows what happens when monsters become wraiths, and he refuses to repeat such a mistake. He asks about any knights around, but apparently they don't have any time to hunt monsters, as their main duty is to protect the city. For hunting actual monsters, they hire people like hunters. After all that disrespect, Turan leaves the official with the impression that he'll end up dead. And then comes the reality check. The creature he was tasked to hunt is killed and brought back, much to this fucker's shock. The kid brought it back instantly, subjugating it alone too. With the job concluded, Turan asks about the bounty. They hurry to fetch him the amount and urge him to rest properly. They're thrilled that he even maintained the wings and brought the crow in good condition. Surprisingly, Turan doesn't leave. Apparently he's got a request to hunt even more. In the next scene, Lena tosses a feast with the most expensive items available, unable to believe that her customer managed to beat 30 whole monsters in 3 days. She knows our boy made a lot of money from it, considering the gold digger she is. But he doesn't care about the money. More importantly, it's the mana he's after, helping him become stronger. His mana has already increased several times, though even he can sense a limit, making it hard to become stronger. Turan asks Lena if she stole a bite from the food, but she accuses him, saying he ate all of it, which is surprising with how skinny he is. Pleased with the food, Bro gets up to leave, when suddenly, a bunch of punks grab him from behind. They've heard him making some noise with monster subjugations, but instead of entertaining their chatter, Turan karate chops this dude's face and humiliates him in front of the baddie. With his provocation, the rest of the gang tries to attack him, but our boy is slick with it and weaves, returning a jab that knocks another dude out. The final guy tries to use furniture to his advantage, as if that's gonna make a difference. Turan reduces his power in his flick and smacks this guy down too. The whole scene is a problem for Lena, who can't condone fighting inside the inn, leaving them all to apologize to our boy in the end. Midan assures him that it will never happen again. The dudes have been getting desperate because of a shortage of money, so his minions got cocky. He forces the idiots to apologize again, while Turan learns about Midan's financial troubles. In 3 days, they won't even be able to sustain themselves the room fee. Instead of ditching these guys, the kind-hearted boy offers them some money, a repayment for the kindness he showed him by inviting Turan to his team. Of course, in exchange for this payment, the boy wants information back, something Midan is happy to comply with. The following day, the talented wizard arrives for his final hunt in the city. He actually asked all about the next city he's gonna head to after packing his stuff from here, and the conversation was really worth it because Midan's that OG homeboy. He's even kinder than Kiorn in some ways. The recalling memory ends fast when Turan senses a sharp smell, begging for his hunch to be wrong as he lunges towards the source. Here he finds lingering claw marks and eventually discovers a guy from one of Midan's group, bloodied up and dead. Here comes the worst part. Even Midan himself is lying on the ground, his money unused from yesterday, his body soaked in red. F's in the chats for Midan. We need to offer a tribute for our fallen comrade. One guy survived, only to bicker words speaking of a rabbit monster that devoured all of them. Turan gazes at the dark rabbit chewing the flesh of one of them. This thing is straight up gonna give me nightmares because look at this Satan spawn on drugs. Our boy gets up to brace himself and the creature literally dashes full speed, nearly hitting him with its tackle. Luckily, he escaped just in time and brought out his trusty whip to control magic and shoot a powerful stone. The shot is fired at tremendous speeds. Several stones manage to strike the creature, but all attacks are defended against because of the monster's speed. Retaliating, the beast jumps at him to finish him, only to realize that his target is nowhere to be seen. The creature comes to a halt, and before it could process its surroundings, Turan flanks it from behind, connecting a lethal stab around its neck. Then he draws away before disappearing again, reminding me of Sung Jinwoo's stealth assassin skill. The creature tries to chase after him by cutting down any surrounding trees in the forest, destroying everything in a rampage. By the end, it loses enough blood from its injuries to collapse and fall to its death, causing our boy to expose himself. Finally, he absorbs all of the mana after killing the beast, except this time, the mana is even greater than the leopard monster he faced. Turan turns to one of the guys that survived and confirms his identity as a wizard. As a final gesture of goodwill, he asks the guy if he's got a family or something that he could pass their belongings on to. This triggers a flashback sequence. Midan was interested in a nearby library in Orem containing thousands of books. He could see how the kid's face lit up after hearing about books. Unfortunately, not everyone could get in. Only wizards were allowed. Recalling that, the boy offers his friends a proper burial and intends to go to the city of Orem. His face shows a look of sadness as he yearns for his friend to find his happiness while he rests. And so we end up with Turan arriving in the great city of Orem, finding himself embarrassed because Murray is nothing in comparison to the sheer size of this thing. Not many people are hurrying to enter the city, and he can even see some guards actively standing by for criminal activity. The great city has a more refined system than the smaller one, and those same guards end up stopping him from entry. They tell him to wipe his clothes for looking despicable and industry, and after doing that, our boy is encapsulated with the beautiful library tower. Its sheer size intimidates him, as he wonders if it's reinforced with magic. Turan finds himself at the entrance, but they remind him that only wizards are allowed to pass through. He reveals his identity as a wizard, but the guards take offense at his shitty impersonation, calling him a lunatic if anything. They refuse to believe him, but when one of them tries to use their spell, he detects something. Kiorn once told Turan that wizards can immediately test the other person's mana and understand if they're stronger or not. This guy tried to assess our boy, only to get knocked down on his ass for even trying. Bro has the fear of death, realizing this isn't a normal wizard at all. Kenya introduces himself as a knight of House Valtas, begging to know what house he belongs to. Luckily, Turan doesn't have to state the name to enter, but the Master of Valtas does need to authorize him first. In the next scene, Turan is taking a bath, annoyed that the process is long and complicated. Bro is currently receiving massage by the maids, who need to wash him or else they'll be punished. Hearing that, he lets them continue to their heart's desire. One of the maids is amazed when our boy actually comes out looking drippy as hell with that suit. All three of them worship his beauty, even pleading him not to speak to them casually because he's acting like they're his friends. Next comes the real deal. A woman boasting pink hair comes to meet the guest, immediately mocking him for looking like a beggar at his first arrival. Soon after dressing him up, the same guy now looks like a prince. Turan introduces himself calmly, receiving Azella's name in return. She wants to know about his house, but he refuses to state it for personal reasons, inviting more intrigue from her. The bratty noble decides to play a prank on him, so she lets loose an intimidating aura, threatening him to use his mana while he looks at her confused. Turan feels a bit overwhelmed as his mana is assessed, but he quickly gathers himself, raises his defenses, and returns the favor. The surge of mana radiating between the two is so intense that even the nearby guards and maids struggle to keep their footing. Once her assessment is finished, Lady Azella Valtas looks genuinely impressed by what she finds. Unfortunately for our hero, the lady is about as subtle as a brick to the face. She immediately throws out a marriage proposal without the slightest warning. The completely unexpected attack catches Turan off guard far more effectively than the mana assessment ever did. While our boy stands there looking absolutely flabbergasted, Azella simply laughs at his reaction. She then leaves with her attendant, casually reminding him that the throne beside her remains vacant if he ever changes his mind. As she walks away, Turan notices his hand trembling slightly and realizes that the girl's mana may actually exceed his own. The thought leaves him wondering whether this level of power is considered normal in this world. With that question still stuck in his mind, he later appears before Azella's daddy, Rug Valtas, the Lord of Aurum. The Lord quickly handles the introductions before asking the boy why he wants access to the library. Rug wants to know his true intentions and makes it clear that the library may end up being far less impressive than people imagine. He explains that all the rumors about ancient magic hidden inside or secret methods for increasing one's mana are completely fake. Turan replies that he never came expecting anything like that in the first place. Once the Lord is satisfied that the boy is not chasing unrealistic fantasies, he tells him to get some rest for the day and return tomorrow to use the library. The following day, Turan arrives at the gates of the Sky Library, and this time the guards welcome him with surprising politeness. He is immediately amazed by the architecture inside, staring up at the enormous ceiling and the seemingly endless interior. Despite the sheer size of the place, there appears to be only a single person inside, the librarian himself, who greets him with a friendly wave and a smile. She explains that the Lord personally ordered her to go over the rules for using the library. While our boy is still trying to process why a little kid seems to be running the entire place, the girl continues listing the regulations. She tells him that he will have to pay for anything he damages, and that no books are allowed to leave the library. After finishing, she points directly at him and warns that she will be keeping an eye on him the entire time. Turan politely asks her to stay a little farther away since it is difficult to concentrate with someone constantly watching him. After that, he heads toward the shelves and asks the librarian for books that can teach him the common knowledge of this world. The librarian picks out several suitable books, explaining that most of the collection is hundreds of years old and would not be very useful for what Turan is looking for. For the first time in his life, our boy holds an actual book and quickly opens it. He is amazed by the amount of knowledge inside and soon develops a habit of reading every day. As time passes, he gradually gains a solid understanding of the world's geography and the many races living within it. He also learns about monsters, relics from the ancient empire era, and even how various items are manufactured throughout the world. A few days later, Turan is summoned by the Lord of Aurum. The Lord bluntly reminds him that access to the library was granted as an act of goodwill, and that he should not assume such generosity comes free of charge. As compensation, Lord Rug asks him to hunt down a monster. He explains that the northern route, one of the region's most important trade roads, has been completely blocked for the past 10 days. Hearing that, Turan quickly realizes that the timing lines up perfectly with his own arrival. It becomes pretty obvious that the reason he was granted such easy access to the library was because this favor had been waiting for him from the very beginning. As the scene shifts to the following day, Turan sets out to hunt the monster alongside the rest of the Valta's expedition team, which even includes Azella herself. The lady complains that it is completely unreliable for her father to send a guest on a monster hunting mission. She openly labels her daddy a troublemaker, prompting her knight to step in. The knight introduces himself as Marvin Valtas and tells our boy that he is looking forward to working with him. Meanwhile, Azella keeps urging everyone to move faster so she can finish the mission quickly and get back to her beauty sleep. During the journey, Marvin casually asks Turan whether he is interested in her, and as expected, Turan immediately denies having any such intentions. This makes the knight relieved as if he was making sure he has no competitions. Before long, the mission team comes across a wrecked carriage. It appears that because the Valtas family had forbidden travel to the north, these merchants must have approached from the south and unfortunately ran into trouble. Turan notices a monkey-shaped palm print and points out that it was likely the work of a monkey-type monster, which probably retreated back into the forest after attacking the merchants. Turan suggests that they should follow the trail and track it down. However, both Azella and Marvin admit that they do not possess any magic suited for that kind of pursuit. Marvin is about to call for a knight who specializes in tracking, but Turan proposes that he can give it a try himself. He picks up a handkerchief left behind and begins examining it through its scent. Luckily, he manages to pick up a trail and points everyone toward a specific direction. The entire expedition follows his lead and eventually arrives at a river. There, the scent suddenly disappears, leading Turan to conclude that their suspect monkey was clever enough to wash itself in the water to avoid being tracked. Just then, their suspect launches an attack from behind, hurling stones toward the group. It quickly becomes clear that this is not a monkey at all, but a gorilla. While Turan jumps aside to avoid the attack, Azella responds in a much different way. She uses several knights as disposable meat shields to block the incoming stones before casually tossing them aside afterward. Watching this unfold, our boy cannot help remembering that his mother might have been right about certain things all along. Azella immediately orders the surviving knights to attack, but the gorilla suddenly turns around and starts fleeing. The group rushes after it, though the lady worries they might lose track of the beast because of its speed. To her surprise, Turan solves the problem himself. Using his stone-throwing skill, he launches a rock that tears straight through the monster, dropping it in a single strike. Everyone immediately turns toward our hero, completely stunned by what they just witnessed. Azella quickly follows up with her flame ability, releasing a scorching serpent that finally puts the wounded gorilla out of its misery. Even our hero finds himself impressed by the power of the Valtus family's pyromaniac bloodline. Once the mission is finished, the lady comments that the rock Turan threw almost gave her a chill as it flew past. Marvin immediately teases her by asking whether she was actually scared. Meanwhile, the knights who accompanied them are in rough shape. Several are covered in blood, some have broken arms, and others are still bleeding heavily from their injuries. Turan looks over at Azella and Marvin and quietly thinks about how easily most of these serious wounds could have been avoided. The sight leaves a bitter taste in his mouth because the knights were treated as little more than meat shields. Marvin notices our hero staring and asks what he is looking at. Before Turan can answer, Azella calls him over so they can begin absorbing the mana from the fallen gorilla monster. Turan starts harvesting the mana, and while doing so he recalls something he learned from the books in the library. According to the records, the total amount of strengthening gained remains the same regardless of how many people absorb the mana at the same time. While Azella and Marvin have already reached their growth limits, Turan continues absorbing mana. Watching this, the lady finally begins to understand why her father insisted on sending their guest along on the mission. His mastery over magic appears incredibly advanced, and despite everything he has already shown, he still has not reached his own limit. The expedition team returns to town by evening. Along the way, Marvin openly praises our boy for tracking down the monster, admitting that they likely would never have caught it otherwise. He also points out that Turan was the one who found the trail in the first place, making him responsible for the success of the entire hunt. Turan, however, is not particularly satisfied with the outcome. He regrets allowing the monster to strike first because he had not realized that the gorilla possessed detection abilities as well. When Marvin asks what he means by the gorilla's skills, Turan explains that it has awakened abilities, something many magical beasts can develop over time. He goes on to explain that the gorilla they defeated had unusually large hands and eyes, which likely indicated that it had awakened skills related to throwing objects with tremendous force, along with enhanced detection abilities. When Marvin admits that he never would have figured that out himself, and finds it impressive that Turan did, our boy simply explains that he learned it from the books in the library. Marvin responds by calling the library an old-fashioned place that hardly anyone visits anymore. Azella quickly agrees and complains that it is filled with difficult books, which is exactly why she could not even finish half of one. Hearing their complaints, Turan suggests that they simply ask the librarian to recommend easier books. Instead of solving anything, his suggestion leaves him with a far more shocking piece of information. Both Marvin and Azella insist that there is no librarian working there at all. A short while later, Turan heads straight to the library to see the girl, wondering whether she might actually be some kind of ghost. Once he arrives, the librarian casually calls him by name. That immediately raises two problems. First, no commoner or knight would normally dare address a noble so casually. Second, Turan cannot figure out how she would even know his name in the first place. Turan asks the little girl about it, and she immediately starts smiling as she takes a seat on a nearby bench. She comments on how long it took him to finally figure it out. The librarian then explains that she saw his name through his license, and casually mentions that nothing escapes her notice once someone enters the vicinity of the library. Taking the opportunity, Turan asks for her name, but she replies that she does not have one, and that he can call her whatever he likes. She even goes as far as suggesting something ridiculous like my love. The librarian then inches closer to Turan and remarks on how strange it is that he has suddenly become so polite after spending all this time ordering her around whenever he needed books. Our hero immediately denies such accusations and quickly takes a step back. He explains that the only reason he moved away was because having someone stand that close makes him uncomfortable. Turan begins wondering whether this mysterious librarian might actually be a mage from the ancient empire. However, the lady quickly shuts that theory down by explaining that she was never human to begin with. Instead, she describes herself as a spirit. To make it easier to understand, she explains that when a soul inhabits a living being, it becomes a living spirit. If it inhabits the dead, it becomes a spirit of the dead. However, if a soul inhabits something that is neither alive nor dead, it simply becomes a spirit. According to her, he can think of her as the library itself, while her appearance changes depending on the person using it. Miss Librarian then immediately turns the conversation against him, claiming that getting close is merely a way of facilitating communication according to Turan's own preferences, somehow making our hero sound like a perv. When he hurriedly insists that he has no such preferences, the librarian simply replies that she is like a reflection in water, implying that what he sees says more about him than it does about her. Our guy still has trouble believing any of this, so he moves a little closer to inspect whether the lady is actually some kind of ghost. To test it for himself, he reaches out with his hand and tries to touch her, only for his hand to pass straight through. Miss Librarian immediately tells him to stop because it is weird, then starts complaining about how difficult life is as a librarian when she cannot even use direct force against intruders. To make matters worse, she explains that she cannot even punish people for taking books from the library. Hearing that, Turan points out that from everything he has learned so far, even the family heads and likely everyone else who has used the library seem completely unaware that a librarian even exists. The moment she hears that, the librarian floats upward and happily tells him that nobody until now has possessed the ability to perceive her, despite her being present the entire time. She has always been there, quietly watching from within the library. She then drifts toward Turan while explaining that her creator designed her in a way that only certain types of people who reach a particular level can recognize her existence. Naturally, she decides to call it a romantic situation since only Turan can see her. Ignoring that comment, our boy instead asks whether those certain types of people are connected to specific bloodlines. That line of thought leads him to another question, and he asks if she can tell him anything about his own bloodline. The librarian responds that this is usually the sort of question a child asks their parents. However, after learning that Turan is an orphan, her expression suddenly becomes a little suspicious as she licks her lips and promises to investigate it if he allows her to examine his body. Turan immediately finds the whole proposal incredibly suspicious and starts wondering what exactly this ghost intends to do. Before he can think much further, Miss Librarian pushes her arm straight through his body. She blushes slightly and comments that they are connected now before getting to work. After examining him, she tells Turan that although there are a few minor influences, his primary bloodline appears to belong to a tracker and hunter lineage, characteristics that strongly point toward the Zahar family. She suddenly discovers something unexpected and tells our boy that there appears to be another bloodline within him. According to her findings, he is actually a mixed bloodline, meaning both of his parents belong to different bloodline lineages. Turan quickly asks about the second one, but Miss Librarian explains that it seems to be sealed at the moment. She goes on to explain that this is not unusual. In cases where two bloodlines combine within a single person, one of them can sometimes remain dormant or sealed. According to her, the best thing he can do is continue growing stronger, and the sealed bloodline should eventually awaken on its own during that process. Hearing this, Turan finds himself thinking about his mother, who had always appeared to be nothing more than a polite and well-mannered commoner. He starts wondering whether she might actually have been descended from some noble lineage. Even if that bloodline had diluted to the point where his mother showed no visible magical abilities, it would still explain how he could have inherited it as a sealed bloodline. After hearing all this, Turan respectfully thanks the librarian for sharing such valuable information. However, the lady immediately responds that if he truly wants to repay her, then he should stay at the library for another month. After learning the librarian's true nature, our boy completely gives up on studying alone and starts relying on her assistance. Whenever he read a book, he would ask her questions about its contents and request further explanations. Apparently, Miss Librarian even possessed knowledge from books that had been stolen or lost over thousands of years, and Turan made sure to take full advantage of that opportunity. Through her guidance, he learns the principles of nature through practical explanations that would likely surpass anything taught in even the finest universities or colleges he could imagine. He also discovers the existence of diseases caused by microscopic organisms invisible to the naked eye, and learns how these germs and microbes play a major role in the process of decomposition. Turan also ends up learning about things like the physics behind light refraction and how heat is generated through friction. He studies how injuries occur, how living organisms recover from them. After getting what are basically premium lectures completely free of charge, our boy starts putting that knowledge into practice. He decides to test what he learned about decomposition by grabbing an apple and using his magic to accelerate the decay process. The result leaves him impressed, because now that he actually understands the principles behind it, the spell consumes far less mana than when he used to force things through trial and error, without understanding what he was doing. Like that, Turan's magic improves by several folds in a surprisingly short amount of time. He points out to the librarian that powerful families must have monopolized this kind of knowledge for generations, because if every mage had access to information like this, the advantage held by the major bloodlines would disappear overnight. This makes the librarian realize why modern-day magic and people's understanding of it have become weaker and weaker as the years passed. As the month finally comes to an end, Turan feels that it is time for him to leave, and mentions it while the librarian is arranging books and putting them back onto the shelves. When she asks why, he explains that the owner has started giving him increasingly obvious signs that he should probably leave now. Hearing that, Miss Librarian immediately starts crying and throwing tantrums. She tells him to take her along with him. Turan considers it for a moment and asks if she can actually leave this place. However, the librarian sadly says she cannot. Instead, she insists that he stay here forever, and even promises to take care of him herself. Realizing that this is most likely goodbye, the librarian gives Turan some final advice. She tells him that many legacies of the deities are scattered throughout the continent and suggests that he visit them whenever he gets the chance. According to her, there is a possibility that spirits reside there as well, and some of them may know even more than she does. As Turan prepares to leave, he promises that he will return someday, and smiles while thinking about the countless books that still remain unread. Miss Librarian immediately acts annoyed and tells him to do whatever he wants. As our boy packs his belongings, he finally decides to head toward the Zahar territory. He has learned that it lies east of Orem near the Enril Desert, and with hopes of uncovering clues about his parents and learning more about his own origins, Turan sets off on the journey. His journey starts off pretty slowly, with the first 2 days passing without anything major happening. While camping by a river, he figures there is no rush to find any clues. If any clues are out there, it is not like they are suddenly going to vanish after sitting around for so many years. On the second day, he hunts a few monsters in the forest, when he suddenly hears a loud animal scream. Peering through the bushes, Turan spots a majestic steed built like a tank, and looking ready to throw hooves at anyone dumb enough to get close. Its aggressive attitude makes it clear that it means business. He is surprised to see the horse is actually protecting its owner from two shady figures with blue skin looking straight out of Avatar, and not the airbender kind. The suspicious duo grumbles about the stubborn horse getting in their way. As he studies the situation, he overhears the half-naked dark elf telling the cloaked one to use his rotten brain and make an opening. The dark elf raises his hands and begins muttering in a strange language he does not recognize. At that moment, the nearby corpses start twisting into something unnatural. Watching the bodies rise as living beings once again, he remembers reading in the library that this might be the dark elf's necromancy. For a moment he considers helping the poor guy. Then again, it also crosses his mind that the dark elves might simply be getting revenge after the man provoked them first. His eyes widen when he watches one of the dark elves pick up a severed hand and snack on it like beef jerky. Hearing them casually joke about eating human flesh leaves a bad taste in his mouth. Jumping into action, he activates his stealth magic and erases his presence from the area. The two freaks continue enjoying their lunch break while stuffing themselves with human meat. The half-naked one even complains that the meat is too hairy. His whining comes to an abrupt end when his partner's head gets smashed open like a watermelon, spraying blood from where his ugly mug used to be. As the body hits the ground, panic immediately sets in. He orders his beasts to stay alert and protect him from every direction. Just then, our boy launches another mana-infused stone through the air. It slams into the horn of one of the dark elf's beasts, Realizing where the attack came from, he demands that the hidden attacker show himself. His beast tears through everything in its path, but finds absolutely nothing. The sly mutt figures his attacker might be using invisibility, so he orders his other beast to use echolocation. The ability picks up Turan's signal hiding in the bushes nearby. Our boy deactivates his stealth magic. The dark elf immediately orders his undead servants to turn him into dinner. Turan has other plans, however. Clapping his hands together, he conjures a burst of flames and blasts the two creatures with fire. The attack instantly cooks the little fox undead, but the yak charges straight through without giving a duck. Our boy barely rolls out of the way at the last second. It quickly becomes clear that this monster is way too fast for him, and he would be at a massive disadvantage if he had not gotten rid of the other one first. Unfortunately, he thinks that a little too soon because pain suddenly shoots through his leg as that same undead sinks its teeth into him with a nasty bite. He kicks the little gremlin away and shifts his focus back to the yak. Before he can react, it slams into him and launches him straight into a tree. Taking a hit that brutal for the first time in his life, his organs churn and he coughs up blood. Watching him bend over like a scrub, the dark elf laughs his head off. He enjoys making Turan suffer after he dared kill his partner, and swears his end will be a miserable one. Out of nowhere, the elf's smug mug gets introduced to the horse's hooves. After that, the beast tramples him and starts absolutely bullying the clown. He quickly orders his undead to save him, so all three gang up on the horse at once. Fuming from the humiliation, the dark elf loses it and screams that he will erase both of them no matter what. That opening is all Turan needs to launch another stone. The pebble nails its target on the first try and blows the dark elf's head clean off just like his partner's. With that, his necromancy comes undone, and the undead immediately return to being corpses. Having pushed himself to the limit, Turan collapses on the spot. Even though he still has plenty he wants to do, he prepares himself for death as the horse approaches him. Suddenly, the horse stops right in front of him and gives him a grateful nuzzle. He returns the gesture, and the two share a surprisingly wholesome moment. Later that night, Sleeping Beauty finally wakes up to the sound of a crackling campfire. He is startled to find a gray-haired stranger sitting across from him, like they are old pals on a camping trip. When he asks for his identity, Turan lets him know he is the guy who saved his sorry hide from the dark elves that were hunting him. The horse named Tilly backs up the story, leaving the guy with little choice but to trust his savior. Impressed by her intelligence, he points out that the horse is ridiculously smart. Not only did she stay behind instead of ditching him, but she also found a safe place and watched over him until he woke up. Appreciating the kindness, the man introduces himself as Aziz from the Burke family. Our wizard curiously asks whether the dark elves had some grudge against him, or if he somehow made them angry. Completely clueless, the blonde prince says he has no idea why they ambushed him and his entourage during their travels. He explains that his family always told him other races tend to be hostile toward humans. Even so, he never expected that hostility to run this deep. Remembering everyone he lost suddenly hits him like a truck, and tears begin welling up in his eyes. Surprised by the reaction, Turan asks if the victims were his family. Aziz admits they were only servants and knights, but they raised him since he was a kid. Turan feels a little warm inside after learning there are nobles like him who have a heart. He asks Aziz how many dark elves were after him and confirms there were only 2. Even then, he cautiously uses scouting magic to scan the surrounding area for danger. He finds absolutely nothing, which is strange because it's not right for only 2 dark elves to wander around alone. Bowing his head respectfully, Aziz asks if his savior is busy with anything important. Turan replies that he is simply traveling for personal reasons. That surprises Aziz because almost nobody travels alone through places this dangerous. He suspects it even more because Turan looks like the descendant of some powerful noble family. Our boy remains humble and says he is not all that impressive. He only managed to kill one of them with a lucky surprise attack. The other one nearly packed him up if Tilly did not step in to help. Wanting to see for himself, the two release their mana. The moment their mana collides, Turan immediately realizes the kid is seriously powerful, and he would have been completely outmatched if he did not absorb mana from the Dark Elves beforehand. At the same time, Aziz is convinced that he does not have what it takes to bring down necromancers like those. Because of that, he wonders whether Turan has some overpowered bloodline or survival instincts cranked to the maximum. Since our boy does not have a fixed destination yet, Aziz invites him to visit the Burke family estate. It is his way of thanking the man who risked his own life to save him. He insists on giving him a proper reward. Pounding a fist against his chest, Aziz proudly reveals that his family is a branch of the great Arabian family. The Burke family is famous for crafting artifacts and enchantments. so he promises Turan to personally find the best artifact possible for him to show his gratitude. The next day begins with a grim reminder of everything that happened as the two bury Aziz's servants and knights who lost their lives. Aziz feels terrible and wishes he could return their bodies to their families. Unfortunately, transporting that many bodies is impossible with only the two of them. Afterward, Aziz thanks him for not flaming him over it. Normally, nobles do not mourn the loss of their servants, and most would laugh at a kid like him for caring so much. The young noble shares that his father always taught him, those who fall in battle receive their reward in heaven. Because of that, nobles are expected to accept it and never show weakness. Aziz admits that if being strong means feeling nothing when people close to you die, then he does not have what it takes to be strong. Turan gives a warm smile and lets his new friend know that being compassionate does not make someone weak. With that, the two become close enough to drop the formalities. Offering his hand, Aziz says he is excited to travel with a good friend like him. Hearing the word friend feels strange to our hero, who has never really had one before. A few hours later, they stop to rest, and Aziz places his steel box on the ground again. When Turan asks why he keeps hauling around that chunky metal brick, Aziz completely blows his mind. A cool breeze spills out when the lid opens, revealing fresh food and water preserved perfectly inside. The village bumpkin is left staring in awe at a device that stays ice cold no matter how hot it is. Then Aziz pulls out another magical artifact that pours out an endless stream of water every time he presses a button. Next, Aziz shows off a building artifact that can craft a shelter for you as long as you feed it some wood. Lastly, he reveals an alarm artifact that detects intruders and starts ringing whenever anyone or anything gets too close. Finally, he unveils what he considers the most busted traveler artifact of all. His clothes are enchanted to always stay clean. Seeing all these unique magical gadgets for the first time, Turan realizes they are not the kind of items an average Joe could ever hope to own. Bro genuinely thinks the self-cleaning clothes alone are already good enough for saving the noble kid's life. But Aziz proudly declares that something that trivial is nowhere near enough in exchange for his life. He promises to get him something truly worthy, even if he has to argue with the family elders to make it happen. The young noble continues by saying that Turan's skills are even crazier than his artifacts. He has already lost count of how many different kinds of magic our hero has used since the start of their journey. The guy can turn invisible, manipulate earth, freeze things whenever he wants, and throw lightning around like Thor. That makes Aziz wonder whether it is the result of relentless training or a special bloodline that lets him learn any magic he wants. Turan goes quiet because, honestly, this stuff kind of just happened on its own. Aziz quickly realizes he is being delusional because there is no shot a bloodline that absurd actually exists. Anyway, he becomes curious about Turan's age since they look roughly the same. The guy jokes that he might secretly be some immortal 69-year-old sage pretending to be young. His eyes nearly pop out of his head when Turan reveals he is about to turn 19 in a month. Then the so-called noble kid drops an even bigger surprise by revealing he turned 43 last year. The guy is completely blown away that someone so young managed to delete 2 necromancers from the server with such tiny mana reserves. That reminds him of 2 other prodigies known across the world for their ridiculous talent. The first person that comes to mind is his second cousin. She became powerful at a young age thanks to a completely broken bloodline ability. Intrigued, our boy asks if she could be the one to craft his artifact. Aziz explains that is not possible because she belongs to the main family while his own family is only a branch. Our protagonist immediately starts connecting the dots and quickly figures out who Aziz is probably talking about. The princess of the Arabian family is quite famous, and there is little doubt she could become the next heir in the future. That said, Aziz explains that normal mage families simply pass leadership down to their children. The great families are a completely different beast. Their children do not automatically inherit anything. Thousands of branch families have heirs around the same age, and the competition is absolutely ruthless. Even with all that competition, Princess Mesa possesses ridiculous talent. She did not even need 10 years to master several different types of magic. Her mana reserves are enormous compared to most members of the family, despite being only 21 years old. Remembering how noble society works, Turan asks whether branch families still have to offer up their funerals to Mesa. Aziz confirms that part of his uncle's mana was absorbed by her while he received the rest. Our hero immediately realizes why the main family is able to maintain control over thousands of branch families. Before long, Aziz points toward their destination as it finally comes into view. The Deccan plains stretch endlessly with grass as far as the eye can see, all of it belonging to Arabian territory. Later, upon arriving at the Burke family residence, Aziz finds his mother waiting at the front entrance to welcome her precious baby boy home. The overgrown man-child immediately rushes over, hugs his mother, and starts tearing up. Man makes him seriously question if this dude is actually 43 years old. Just then, Aziz's father appears and politely advises his son to at least stop calling her mommy in public. Anyway, Aziz introduces our hero as the friend he met during his journey. He admits that he would not have made it back alive if Turan did not risk his life for him. His mother is stunned because the trip was never supposed to be dangerous. Aziz then reveals that he was attacked by dark elf necromancers in broad daylight. His mother instantly goes full Karen and starts ranting about how those purple turds dared lay a finger on her baby boy. His father quickly reminds her to chill out because everyone is watching. He then turns to the protagonist and asks him to state his family name so he may know the man who saved their son. That immediately puts Turan in an awkward position, so he admits that the answer is not exactly simple. Bro straight up reveals that he was born to a commoner mother and has no idea who his father was. Aziz's jaw drops to the floor on hearing that for the first time. His mother is quite understanding and vows to fulfill her duty to the savior of her family's most precious treasure. While she cannot allow a commoner to stay in the family manor, she promises him a room at the best inn in the city. Aziz argues that it would be rude not to host their guest in the main estate, but she replies that a very important person is currently staying in their home. Because of that, inviting an outsider with no identity is impossible. Right then, a red-headed girl tells her that will not be necessary. After all, it is unlikely that someone who saved Aziz would suddenly pull an Assassin's Creed on her. All eyes turn toward the tall, slender figure standing at the entrance of the Burke estate. With piercing blue eyes, the redhead quietly watches Aziz, who is confused by her unexpected visit. Turan is stunned when he realizes the lady standing right in front of him is the Princess of Arabian. He is mildly disappointed though because the girl has the charisma of a brick wall. Anyway, the princess reveals that some Zahar family dirtwads recently came dangerously close to assassinating her. That is why she is lying low at the Burke family estate. Aziz is stunned to hear that she is not safe even in the main family house, which can only mean one thing. The princess confirms there is an insider involved, though that hardly surprises her since she cannot even count how many people would love to see her gone. With that, the gloomy goth princess says she is tired and wishes everyone good night before heading off to sleep. Since their VIP guest has no objections, our boy spends the night in the second best guest room at House Burke. Early the next morning, he wakes up and heads outside for a stroll. During his walk, he runs into Aziz, who is surprised to find him wandering the halls by himself. The protagonist shows off his village NPC energy again, asking about the glowing things hanging on the wall. Aziz proudly explains that the magic lamp is a simple device all the Burkes use as practice for creating their first artifact. Suddenly, a massive lightning strike flashes outside the window, leaving him completely speechless. Aziz does not even react because he is already used to Mesa's morning practice sessions. Turan asks if she is practicing the Arabian family's bloodline ability. Aziz agrees and admits he has always been a little jealous of the storm magic that makes you feel like the god of thunder himself. Seeing her magic firsthand, our hero grows curious about just how powerful the future heir of one of the great families really is. To his surprise, Aziz invites him to take a closer look. Turan hesitates since it would be pretty weird for an outsider to walk up and meet her on his very first day there. Knowing he is not plotting against her life, his friend offers to be his wingman. The real reason, though, is that he is dying to know which of Turan and Mesa is stronger right now. With a smug grin, Aziz admits he still holds a grudge from back when she used to train with him. He would really love to see her get clapped at least once, so the two head over to meet the princess, who does not even remember his name. Wearing the same deadpan NPC expression as always, she asks what they want. Aziz casually says he wanted to spend some time with her and practice magic like they did in the good old days. Mesa remembers those days perfectly well, especially when he ran off crying to mommy after she learned the same spell in 2 attempts that took him an entire week. Our boy lets out a chuckle at the embarrassing memory. Aziz gets disappointed that he violated their sacred bro code. Anyway, the guy tells her his friend is a freakishly talented wizard who is leagues above anyone else he has ever seen. Because of that, he wants to watch the two of them throw down and settle who is stronger. Mesa is visibly caught off guard by the random request. After thinking it over for a moment, she releases her mana. Our hero looks up at the violent lightning crackling around her. The sheer destructive power radiating from her completely overwhelms him. By the time she stops, he is drenched in sweat and struggling to catch his breath. Her doubts are erased, and the princess finds it difficult to imagine how she should duel a pathetic weakling. Aziz then steps in and confirms that in terms of magical reserves, our hero is no match at all. However, he has the ability to learn any magic thrown at him. The blonde lays it on thick that there is no genius like Turan, and even she cannot match him. Mesa takes the bait and decides to see what this genius can do. Our hero suggests that they should each show a magic that the other has no idea of, and the fastest one to perform wins. Aziz butts in again and eggs his cousin on that it is a good offer. The gloomy redhead agrees to it and even promises to leave her bloodline magic out since Turan does not know his. Taking a step forward, she announces that she will start first, while the two just keep looking. All of a sudden, a tiny plant sprouts out of the ground, but then it suddenly starts growing rapidly. The vines then entangle around Aziz and lift him high into the air, causing him to scream like the man-baby he is. Mesa asks Turan if he can do this plant manipulation. Meanwhile, the blonde keeps on screaming, demanding to be let down before he is going to puke. Turan stares at the poor guy and then crouches, putting his hand on the ground. He recalls that fire creation is simply willing the natural phenomenon into existence, and the same is the case with water, creating it from moisture. He figures that plant creation works the same way. Instead of actually creating life, it is simply increasing the growing rate of seeds in the ground. Pouring excessive mana out of his hand, vines start sprouting out of the ground at a rapid speed, catching both cousins by surprise. Mesa comments that since he realized it was actually a growth spell, he must know the true nature of magic, and asks if he did it before. However, Turan denies it and says that it is his first time. She gets amused that Aziz's claims actually turned out to be true for once, and lets him down in a very undignified manner. Mesa then turns to our hero, and tells him that it is his turn now to decide which magic they both have to perform. Turan goes deep in thought and figures that using the Zahar technique will straight up get his head lose internet connection from his body. He suddenly gets an idea and extends his hand toward a nearby bush. A rat comes running out and the gloomy redhead remains unimpressed, asking if this is it. However, Turan tells her to hold her horses as the main event is yet to come. Grabbing the stinky rat with his bare hands, he channels his mana into it and instantly causes it to shrivel up into a husk. Mesa is taken aback by what she just saw while our boy then dangles the dead rat around, saying that he is now done. She then states that it is her turn and uses animal control magic to call another rat to her. Picking it up, she channels her mana into it. However, the rat does not change at all. The redhead starts panicking a bit and realizes that this is not any ordinary magic at all. Meanwhile, Aziz asks why he used that disgusting magic, but our hero just brushes it off. On the inside, Turan is surprised that even though he suspected it, it is shocking that the great Arabian family does not know about this concept either. Aziz teases her that she still has not done it, and should simply hand over the victory to Turan. However, that makes her angry as she challenges him, asking if he does not think that she can do something like this. The rule that comes with using magic is that causality is a pretty big factor. If a person is trying to cause a natural phenomenon, then they should have a clear concept in their head, and they should have adequate mana for the spell. The most important factor is being able to perceive the spell, which ultimately affects the success rate and mana usage for the spell. If the person does not possess the concept of the spell, then they can compensate by pouring excess mana into it to balance things out. Mesa is fully engaged now, willing the rat to rot itself while alive. Finally, the spell works and this rat also shrivels up, turning into a corpse. Aziz states the obvious that the spell worked. On the other hand, the redhead is panting like she ran a marathon and announces that she completed the magic. In the next moment, her eyes go dull as she suddenly collapses to the ground. Both of them rush over to her, yelling at her to wake up. Turan is confused and wonders if she collapsed because she used too much mana. However, he then recalls that mana consumption does not cause a person to pass out, and at most, she should just be exhausted. Upon looking closely, it suddenly clicks to him what the reason is. Picking her up, he asks if there is any mage here with a healing bloodline, but the blonde denies it. He then tells him to bring salt and water to her room and call the grown-ups fast. He notes that she is lighter than a lamb and figures that the mana that was barely supporting her body must have been exhausted too. Sometime later, Mesa finally opens her eyes back in her room. Aziz's mother starts worrying, asking if she is all right. The redhead gets up and asks what she is doing here. The mother answers that she heard the redhead had collapsed while training with the guest and asks if this story is true. Mesa goes silent for a few seconds, and the mother then asks if Turan did something bad to her. She suddenly shouts that our hero did not do anything wrong and that it was entirely her fault. She then yells at them to get out since her head is throbbing. The mother then reveals that she made some soup for her. She knows that Mesa does not eat because of her magic, but she has to take care of her health. The old woman then sighs and turns to leave while the redhead thanks her for all her efforts. A few moments later, she stares at the bowl and picks it up. However, as soon as she tries to take one spoonful, she suddenly freezes up. Mesa gets thrown into a vision where the voices of her sisters beg her to save them. That causes her to throw up what little she ate and drop the bowl to the ground. She grips her head tightly and tries to calm herself down. Coming back to our hero, who is now standing in the basement of the Burke family in front of a statue. The other guy there announces that the walls and doors of this place are impenetrable and tells our boy to give up any plans of escape. Turan does not even seem all that fazed since he was not planning to escape at all. Haram keeps on insisting that it is very secure while slowly edging closer and closer. Our hero wonders if he is bragging about the defenses, but then he gets surprised as the burly man just starts practicing with his sword as if nothing happened. Turan asks what he is doing, and the man casually replies that he is practicing his skills. Haram keeps on going, swiping, jabbing, swinging. Our boy is amazed since he can see that there is no wasted movement at all, and wonders if such efficiency is humanly possible. He then notices that the burly man is staring at him and apologizes. However, Haram then gets up in his face again and asks what our hero saw in his movements just now. He replies that he thought those moves were incredible. That satisfies Haram, who then goes back to his practice. He states that most nobles look down on swordsmanship since it is easier to use magic from a distance. He rambles on that since their bodies are weak, they try to compensate with magic like a beta. Our hero refutes that unless a person's bloodline magic involves combat, it is less efficient to train with a weapon. However, when a person goes through trials, there are situations where magic becomes inefficient too. Just then, Haram offers the sword to him and tells him to hold it. Turan gets confused and asks if it is okay to give a weapon to him since they locked him up here as a suspect. The burly man smiles and says that it is not a problem since this is just a piece of iron. What makes it dangerous is the person wielding the weapon, indirectly calling our hero weak as hell. Holding the sword up, our boy wonders what he can even do with a sword. Haram gets pleasantly surprised as our boy takes a fighting stance and starts channeling mana into his sword. However, in the next moment, he starts flaming my man for doing it wrong and tells him to stop using mana. The burly guy then starts drilling the proper steps into him, trying to perfect his stance while our hero can only say yes in response. He then starts the practice swings while Haram tells him to steady his breathing. The beefy man then compliments him, saying that if he keeps this up then he can fully maximize his absolute potential. Haram is fully convinced that mana is nothing more than a cheap trick, whereas training the body is the true manly way. Because a body that has been properly maintained can demolish an entire battlefield without using a drop of mana. All of a sudden, Turan's eyes narrow as the doors of the basement open and the lady of the house walks in. Aziz's mother apologizes for acting rude and locking her family's benefactor in here. However, our hero apologizes too in return, as that wasn't how a guest was supposed to act. The old woman then states that Mesa wants to apologize too and asks him to come with her. A few moments later, the gloomy redhead says, sorry that he got locked up because of her actions. Turan then brushes it aside and says that it was the natural course of action to take. Mesa then changes the topic to the competition from yesterday and asks if that rot magic was some sort of bloodline ability. The magic required a ton of mana, so it isn't some trick. Our boy tells her that if she understands the principle behind it, then she can easily use it too. She then jokingly asks if he isn't going to teach her for free. However, if Turan doesn't show her, then there is no way of knowing if that is bloodline magic or not. At that moment, Turan states that he doesn't care about the bet at all. That catches her completely by surprise, and she demands to know how he can think to end it like that. She then regains her composure and says that in exchange for that info, she will teach him the secret Arabian family technique. Turan agrees to the offer and starts explaining the principles behind the rot magic to her. She finally understands that the spell was simply speeding up the life force and using tiny germs to cause the rat to rot. She then starts berating herself for losing because she didn't know the reasoning behind it and ended up using brute force. Turan tries to let her take the dub, but she denies it, saying that proper mages don't consider brute forcing magic a win. In the end, they decide to call it a draw since she doesn't want Aziz to gloat about winning. She then decides that she has to settle the debt and start searching through her drawers. Producing a comb, she starts to brush her hair and causes it to stand up when she brings the comb near it again. She smugly starts announcing that this is a force that causes objects to attract each other, however our boy beats her to it. He already knows it is static electricity. That makes her completely flabbergasted. This irritates her even more since this is one of the secret techniques in her family, and she now has to find another way to pay him back. Mesa then offers that until she thinks of a proper way to compensate him, the two of them can train together to settle the debt. Turan likes the sound of that and agrees to it, and says that he will see her every day at sunset. That night, the dining table was filled with a mountain of mouth-watering food. Aziz's mother tries to be all humble, and says that it isn't a lot and tells everyone to enjoy themselves. Even the blonde is shocked and states that there wasn't this much food on his birthday, and wonders if the head of Arabian is coming here. Even Turan feels like this is definitely a lot. The old woman then switches the topic and asks about the promise her son made regarding a powerful magic artifact. She asks if there is anything specific that he wants. Our boy answers that he wants something to help with his defense. He has no problem with attacking. Still, he wants something to help defend against surprise attacks. The mother announces that making that shouldn't be difficult at all, but they don't have anything ready at the moment. Aziz asks if he can personally make one but gets shot down by his mother. At that moment, his older brother speaks up and says that he just finished with the main house so he has some free time. The mother and son discuss that to deal with surprise attacks, it is better to make something that you should wear all the time, like a necklace. The artifact activates Guardian Bloodline defense when magic is poured into it, however it will take 30 days to complete. The old woman lays it on thick that even though she is the head, Mello has skills that can rival her own. So it simply means that a high-level mage of the Burke family is dedicating a month to an artifact. Turan asks if this is not too much for someone like him, but she counters by asking if her son's life is worth so little. She then announces that he will be staying as a guest for the next 30 days, so he should make himself at home. Sometime later, Aziz is exploring the market with our hero. The blonde states that his mom has really taken a liking to him. He then reveals that he told his mom all about what happened, including the magic and training. Although the blonde only wanted his mother to not view him as someone inferior, Turan guesses that she now wants to take him into the family. Aziz confirms it, saying that normally they loop you in with a hot girl who has worked on several members of the family. Aziz then tells him not to worry since the artifact is only to get on his good side, and they won't try to marry him yet. The blonde then changes the subject and asks if he is free right now. Turan answers that he agreed to train with Mesa in the afternoon. Aziz loops his arm around him and says that they have plenty of time then so they can go on a patrol together through the capital. He teases our hero, asking if he planned to just stay in his room with magic on such a beautiful day. Turan answers that he was, but the blonde still drags him away, saying that he has much to live for. He first takes him to a gambling place, but my guy immediately backs out of there. The blonde then takes him to a pub, but he backs out too. Later, while exploring the stalls, our hero comes across a poster on the wall and gets surprised. He realizes that it says Kiorn, which makes him wonder if it is the same one he knows. The two then book tickets for the show. A few years back, the Arabian warriors were heading out towards the Demon Desert. There was a knight among them named Kiorn, who defeated all their enemies with some divine help. Just as the actor Kiorn defeats the enemies, the audience bursts into applause. Aziz asks if our hero liked the show, to which he replies he found it entertaining. On the inside, he is surprised by how humble Kiorn truly is, calling himself a common knight. He makes a promise to himself that if he ever sees the guy again, he will make him cough up the entire story. The next day, Turan opens his eyes only to get frozen in shock. Haram is up in his face again and asks if he rested his body well. The burly man continues that he realized yesterday our hero's vessel had a lot of potential. Haram then tells him to get ready for training, which catches him by surprise. He then states that a body only gets stronger when it's pushed to its limits. The burly man asks if our boy doesn't want to, but Turan strengthens his resolve and says that he is ready. Just then, Aziz walks in and starts babbling about another play that is happening in town, but stops when he notices his uncle there. Haram tells him that they are going to train, but the blonde starts making up some excuses that he just came back from a walk. The guy then runs away, saying that he is still exhausted, making our hero curious why he's suddenly acting like that. Sometime later, he gets the answer to his own question. Haram asks if Turan can feel his body calling out for help and tells him to do another rep. Even after that one, he tells our boy to go again, who looks like he is about to collapse. Finally, the beefy man takes some mercy and tells him to take some rest for now. Our hero collapses to the ground, wheezing like a lifelong smoker. Haram asks if he is feeling tired, to which Turan can barely sound out a yes. The bodybuilder then tells him to take it easy for now, since he only has to do this once because he is a mage. If he weren't a mage, then things would have been different. A normal human body weakens over time. However, a mage's body stays in top shape thanks to mana. So once the body has been developed properly, it will never even weaken. Haram then states that our boy has rested enough, which makes him fear for his life once more. However, the burly man doesn't let up and says that he knows the body doesn't lie. So now he is going to teach Turan weapon and fighting techniques, making him scream like a little boy. Sometime later, our boy is panting and soaked in sweat. Haram reveals that this training chamber's gravity is tuned all the way up, so the moment he slips, the person gets flattened to the floor. After his early morning training with Haram, in the evening, he did magic training with Mesa. Just like that, 3 weeks already passed before he knew it. Out of nowhere, a lightning bolt smashes into the wall, missing the target completely. Our hero realizes that he messed up once more. Mesa taunts him that someone of his caliber should not be struggling with this magic. He plays it off, saying that he isn't a member of the Arabian family, so it is to be expected. The redhead says that she can't do much to help since she is a prodigy who doesn't have to aim. Just then, a voice calls out asking for her as a man in a cloak walks up to her. He then looks at Turan and asks who this handsome man is. However, Mesa coldly brushes the topic aside and instead asks why the guy is here despite her orders of no contact. The messenger reveals that the head of the Arabian family has summoned her. She demands to know what happened. The messenger reveals that the Dark Elves have started a massive war with them and have started attacking in the south. So far 3 cities have already fallen, which is why the Arabian family is mobilizing. Turan's face gets serious as he realizes that the enemy has finally revealed himself. Mesa stays calm and dismisses him, ordering him to tell everyone that she will arrive as quickly as possible. Turning back to Turan, she explains that she has no choice but to leave because duty calls. Before she heads out, however, she wants to settle how she should repay him for teaching her his ugly decomposition magic. That is when she comes up with an interesting idea. She asks him what he knows about the electrical signals that travel through the human body. At first, Turan is confused by her strange proposal. Mesa smugly boasts that an average Joe could never possibly know about something like that, because it is an Arabian family secret. Since that is the case, she decides to teach him the family's bloodline magic, believing it will be useful for a solo traveler like him. With a smile, Mesa points to her head and explains that every time he sees a baddie, a tiny electrical signal travels from his eyes to his brain. The same thing happens with touch and every other sense including smell. Hearing that, our boy starts imagining tiny electrical currents flowing throughout his body. He tries using magic to speed them up. Suddenly, he goes full Ultra Instinct and sees the world in a way he has never experienced before. Inside this state of heightened awareness, Mesa asks how it feels. Turan can only laugh as he watches the butterfly flying in front of her flap its wings in slow motion. Out of nowhere, though, a crushing headache slams him. He grabs his head in agony and nearly throws up. Impressed, Mesa realizes he actually pulled it off on his very first attempt, but he also suffers backlash from forcing far too much mana into the spell. It takes him some time to get used to the pounding headache. Even so, Mesa explains that the spell will become incredibly powerful once he fully masters it. Turan realizes that and starts feeling guilty for receiving something far more valuable than what he taught her. Ignoring his concern, Mesa takes off with a laugh, saying it is simply a gift for someone she considers talented. She fully expects him to learn magic even greater than this and repay the favor someday. With that, she leaves for Morgan City. Later, in Morgan City, a massive crowd gathers to watch the Arabian army prepare for war against the Dark Elves. Aziz jokes that the departure ceremony looks a lot less like soldiers marching off to battle and a lot more like a victory celebration. Right then, he waves to Mesa as she rides past them on horseback, ready to head into battle. His father, standing beside him, tells the overly excited man-child to calm down because a nobleman should not make a fool of himself. Soon after, an announcement rings out that the head of the Arabian family has arrived. Watching him closely, our protagonist is surprised by the condition of the shriveled-up old man, who looks like he goons way too much. This frail husk of a man is Badal Arabian, the current head of the Arabian family. Noticing his washed-out complexion, Turan asks Aziz if the family head has some kind of illness. Aziz tells him about the rumor that Badal Arabian never fully recovered from his fight with the head of the Zahar family during the war. That happened a long time ago, though, so it could simply be the result of aging. Just then, the Arabian family head raises his hand and summons a huge thundercloud that wraps the city in darkness. Powerful bolts of lightning roar across the darkened sky and send chills down everyone's spine. Turan is stunned by the spectacle, showing the incredible power of Arabian, which Badal is capable of producing even though his body looks like it is at its limit. With eyes full of determination, he swears that he will reach that pinnacle of human magic himself. Back at the Burke family estate, his gift is ready, and it turns out to be a bracelet. Apparently, it buffs his physical attributes when worn, but that effect skyrockets once he channels mana into it. The boost is strong enough to rival the Guardian Bloodline's defense. However, its creator warns him that it rapidly drains his mana reserves if he uses it for too long. One look at the artifact is enough to make our boy realize it is equal to a treasured family heirloom. Out of nowhere, Aziz's mother suddenly asks if he is willing to officially join the Burke family. He genuinely appreciates her generous offer after receiving such a kind gift, but he makes it clear that it will not be possible. The lady quickly understands, since Aziz already told her he is not the kind of guy who will settle down anytime soon, even if that is her dearest wish. He apologizes and assures her that he will never forget the kindness and love her family showed him. After that, he steps outside the house where he is met by his friend and coach. The coach tosses him a farewell gift. While the small dagger does not possess any magical effects, it is the sharpest and toughest short sword on the market. Turan thanks him and respectfully calls him sensei. That is the magic word the coach wanted to hear, and he walks away proudly. Next, Aziz surprises him, wrapping a big black cloak around him from behind. It is a small payback for when Turan said he was jealous of the blonde guy's self-mending fit. Along with that, he also gives Turan clothes that are hard to get dirty, and any light damage repairs itself to complete the set. Aziz's golden retriever energy brings a warm smile to his face. The guy grins widely and admits that the time they spent together really made him reconsider how he wants to live his life. With that said, his friend asks where his next destination will be, and he replies that he is heading east. Hearing that, Aziz explains he has been to the eastern city of Carmane before, but he warns him not to travel by ship because the sea waves are absolutely ruthless. What his friend does not know is that he has no choice but to battle those waves, because his goal is to cross over to the country of Zahar. With that, Aziz wishes him good luck and jokes that he better repay him properly for the cloak when he comes back. Thus, he continues traveling through the countryside as a solo traveler like always. That also comes with the perk of never having to slow down for anyone. Pouring magic into his legs, he bolts through the landscape like a roadrunner on steroids. A few days later, he arrives in a forest where he takes a stop after smelling something unusual. During his investigation, he picks up the scent of ash coming from what seems to be a nearby campfire. Then the smell gets worse, carrying the unmistakable stench of burning flesh. Somewhere ahead, he comes across a village filled with destroyed houses and burned wood as far as the eye can see. At the town center, he finds the disturbing sight of criminals tied up and burned to a crispy medium rare. He assumes they were bandits who attacked the village because dark elves would never bother coming to some backwater place like this. One of the nearby houses that is still standing catches his eye, so he heads over hoping to find a survivor he can question. Inside, he discovers an intact trapdoor leading to a basement. Gripping both handles, he forces the locked door open and literally tears it from its hinges. The moment he looks inside, his eyes go wide as he sees a terrified little girl staring back at him. Tears burst from her eyes as she screams and begs him for mercy. He quickly lets her know he is not a diddler and only came to check on her. The little girl gradually stops sobbing and tells him what happened. According to her, a wizard butchered everyone in the village. He is surprised to learn that a knight or noble was responsible for all this destruction. Before he can ask her anything more about the suspect, she suddenly collapses onto the floor. Scooping her into his arms, he figures she stayed safe inside the basement and probably fainted from pure exhaustion. He carries her out of the crumbling house so they can spend the night somewhere much safer. At that very moment, a magic bow with an arrow drawn is aimed directly at his head. Looking over, he finds the owner of the bow yelling that she is thrilled to have finally found him, while the rest of her party surrounds them. The blonde lady ruthlessly orders him to kneel if he does not want her to blow out a kneecap or two. He simply stands there in confusion as the blonde swears at him and accuses him of mass murder. With a look of pure disgust, she asks if burning down an entire village was not enough for him that he is now grooming a little girl as well. One of her comrades warns him not to move unless he wants to get impaled by his flame spear. Before things go further, our hero explains that they have completely misunderstood the situation. But the fire wizard Gil suddenly loses control of his spear and accidentally lets it fly. The powerful spell crashes straight into Turan and erupts into a massive cloud of fire. Seeing that, the blonde immediately chews the numbskull out for attacking him while he was still carrying a little girl in his arms. Even though Gil insists it slipped out by accident, the blonde suddenly turns her head in shock. Turan blocked the attack with a defensive spell, leaving himself completely unharmed despite the smoldering flames surrounding him. Honestly, He never expected the artifact to save him this early into his journey. The blonde archer's entire party is left dumbfounded after watching a guy using nothing but physical enhancement stand against that fire attack. She concludes to herself that such an overwhelming defense must be his bloodline ability. Now that everyone's calm, our hero explains they mistook him for the attacker. Still, he makes it clear he is not afraid to fire back if they show him that kind of disrespect a second time. The blonde archer still does not buy his story and keeps her bowstring drawn. However, after looking at the little girl's calm expression, she realizes it would make no sense for him to burn 1,000 people alive only to save one child. She introduces herself as the party leader, Bison. Lady Trust Issues asks him for some kind of proof. Given the circumstances, he is not exactly making himself look innocent. He calmly replies that she can ask the little girl later since she is a witness who saw the attacker. Bison can hardly believe her ears when she hears that the girl actually saw their target, the arsonist. Seeing Turan's confused reaction to that name, she explains that the arsonist is the wacky wizard going around burning entire villages to the ground. Since the arsonist never leaves any survivors, nobody even knows whether the culprit is a man or a woman. All they know is that the killer uses powerful fire magic to annihilate everything, and that is exactly what earned them the title. Later, when the little girl wakes up, she reveals the arsonist's appearance. Apparently the criminal is a creepy old geezer wearing a red cloak who looked kind of like a lumberjack. Confused by her description, Bison and the rest of her party slowly turn to look at Turan, who stands there with the biggest told-you-so stare. They immediately apologize for jumping to conclusions like complete idiots. Turan notes that wizards seem to value their sense of duty over common sense, reminding him of the honest leader Medan. He lets them off the hook since they only suspected him for the sake of protecting an innocent little girl. Putting that aside, Bison reveals that her party came here because they saw a golden opportunity to capture the arsonist. They heard that another village had just been attacked nearby, rushed over as fast as possible, and still arrived too late. Even so, she considers it a huge win because they finally know what the arsonist looks like. The tracker in her party should be able to sniff the culprit out with ease. My guy assumes she must belong to the Zahar family if she is a tracker. However, Bison explains that there are no traitors in her party. Her friend Asha comes from a small family whose bloodline mixed with a noble from the country of Zahar. Just like her half-blood, the tracking bloodline ability is half as strong, and she cannot even erase her presence. Bold as hell, she makes a selfish request to the guy she literally attacked a minute ago. She asks him to help her party hunt down the arsonist. Bison is so desperate that she offers him the entire reward money along with his share of the bastard's mana. It seems reputation is the only thing she actually cares about. Curious, he asks if she has any idea how strong their target really is. She replies that the arsonist is probably a fallen noble, and reports say he is so absurdly strong that even a village protected by a full team of knights got absolutely folded. Eager to finally fight something stronger than those pathetic demonic mobs he's been bullying on his travels, he happily accepts her proposal. At a nearby village, he hands an old man a pouch full of gold coins. It is not out of the kindness of his heart, but simply as payment for taking care of the little girl until she grows up. Just to make sure the fat man does not try anything funny, Turan warns Fatty he will come back in a few years to check on her himself. After that, the party officially begins the hunt for the arsonist. The tracker in Bison's party picks up a trail and leads everyone deep into the forest. The girl starts sniffing around like a bloodhound, bouncing all over the place as she searches for even the tiniest trace. Turan curiously asks about her methods. The tracker explains that she first follows the target's footprints before tracing the path where the smell of ash is strongest. She is confident the ash lingering on his clothes will lead them straight to the target, assuming the bastard has not changed outfits yet. While our hero is impressed by her skills, the sharp-eyed tracker finally catches a solid lead. She immediately gives chase through the forest and guides the party to the entrance of a small cave carved into the mountainside. Since Turan has the toughest defensive magic out of everyone in the group, Bison asks him to take point. After summoning a small ball of light to illuminate the path, the party carefully makes its way through the narrow tunnel. The deeper they venture, the louder the humming becomes, making the party leader wonder just how many people could be hiding inside. Her tracker confirms that she can only sense a single presence. Bison cautiously moves forward, with our boy right behind her just to keep things safe. The two make their way into a large chamber where they find a wizard wearing a red cloak. The creepy man, blind in one eye, questions what brings two fine ladies to his humble abode. Turan asks Asha to confirm whether he really is the arsonist. She has no doubt that the reeking old geezer is their target. Before Bison plants an arrow straight through his skull, She demands to know if he is the one who burned down the village. The arsonist quietly mutters that he does not understand, and suddenly an explosion erupts right beneath her. The spreading flames blast the party members standing in the back. Bison, however, remains completely unharmed thanks to the defensive magic from our hero's bracelet. Seeing his flames do absolutely nothing, the arsonist has a seizure. That opening allows Bison to fire an arrow that absolutely deletes his kneecaps. Taking an arrow to the knee instantly sends the old man crashing to the ground. Desperate, the washed-up psycho realizes he cannot afford to die so soon and slams his hand against the floor. A pair of giant rock hands erupts behind Bison, ready to crush her. He is caught off guard that the flame bloodline wizard had another hidden trick up his sleeve. Even so, Turan uses his magic-infused whip to smash straight through the stone hands. That gives him a clear path directly to the arsonist, who raises his hand to cast another flame explosion. This time, however, it is his own arm that blows apart after our boy yeets a stone into his shoulder with full force. The deranged amputee screams in agony while Turan closes the distance to finish the job. Powering his whip with electricity, he tases the old man until he is knocked unconscious. By the time the party leader crawls out from the rubble, she finds the arsonist already incapacitated by the electric shock. After that, Turan tosses a handful of seeds onto the ground. They immediately grow into mana-infused vines that tightly restrain the old bastard, making it impossible for him to move while also covering his eyes and blocking his vision. With no chance of the arsonist pulling another cheap trick, Turan wakes the washed-up lunatic back up. Holding a sword to his neck while standing right behind him, he warns the madman that he is dead meat if he squeezes out even a single magicule. The arsonist questions how they managed to find his hideout. Turan lets the wrinkly bum know that he is the one asking the questions now. He starts with his first question, but Mr. Arsonist responds with stubborn silence. So Turan speeds things up by politely jabbing a knife into his leg, making the old fossil scream his lungs out in agony. Showing absolutely no remorse, he asks the second question. He wants to know why he went on a murder spree and started burning down entire villages. The nutjob screams that he was only carrying out God's orders, claiming God told him to burn the bodies and souls of evildoers. The entire party is left gobsmacked by his insane claim when he insists that God said this is how he would earn a new bloodline. The arsonist is devastated because he believes he was only a few more humans away from obtaining the true flame bloodline. Bison thinks it is nothing more than the delusions of a senile crackpot, and says it is ridiculous to believe someone can earn bloodlines by killing other people. Every instinct in Turan's mind, however, screams that the old bastard is actually onto something. He remembers Midan saying he saw ordinary adventurers earn bloodlines and become wizards simply by killing demonic beasts. A chill runs down his spine as he realizes he may have uncovered one of the darkest secrets about this world. Before the arsonist rambles something unnecessary, he silences the crazy bastard, slitting throat wide open with his short sword. The man's body collapses to the ground and lands in a pool of his own blood while the entire party stands there in silence. One of them feels sick because watching a helpless man tied up and having his throat cut is downright brutal, like watching livestock get slaughtered. Bison, however, is completely serious. That helpless-looking man was capable of turning them into last night's barbecue. Sympathy is the last thing he deserves. While she continues listing all the awful things the arsonist has done, our boy picks up his journal. After flipping through a few pages, he quickly realizes there is more than enough evidence proving it belonged to him. Besides the reward for bringing back proof, he also discovers recipes for all kinds of alchemy he has never seen before. That makes him wonder if the voice of that so-called god revealed those recipes as well. After that, Bison reminds him that it is time to absorb the man's mana, so the entire group extracts the powerful mage's mana together and enjoys a free level up. Back in the city, a gentleman congratulates the lady of the Carmine family for capturing the mad pyromancer. Along with Turan, she receives her reward and then shares her party's plan to hunt bounties during their travels. However, he informs her that he cannot join them because he is heading to Abacha. Hearing that, she quietly whispers what happened must remain a secret, and he assures her that he understands because those rumors could have serious consequences. With that settled, she leaves with her party. Once again, the protagonist sets out on his journey alone toward the Great Desert. Along the way, he feels like testing his fire magic in this terrain. He snaps his fingers and notices that even a small flame consumes more mana than expected. That makes him realize that fire magic drains way too much MP in the desert biome. In contrast, the water magic he casts is far easier to use and costs significantly less mana. This strange phenomenon is like a bizarre GPS that helps him locate the city of Abacha. The scene shifts to an inn where someone asks a sailor whether his ship will depart the next day. The sailor explains that he needs to travel to the burning hell known as the Enrolled Desert, but it is nearly impossible to travel by sea because the waterfolk will harpoon your ship straight into Bikini Bottom. The two sitting across from him are shocked by how dangerous things have gotten on the high seas. The one-eyed drunkard, who seems to be the captain, points out that his crew might start dropping like flies if they do not get paid in this desperate situation. At this point, he is willing to pay whatever it takes for someone capable of defending them. Right on cue, our boy appears from behind and asks whether they happen to be sailing toward the Enrolled Desert. The captain admits that his ship is leaving the following morning. However, he warns that this is not some fancy VIP cruise liner, and they do not have room for freeloaders. Taking on one extra passenger means one less barrel of booze, and that is a real tragedy in his eyes. Our boy immediately pulls a power move by placing his hand on the captain's beer mug. The old pirate gives him a nasty side-eye, but his attitude does a complete 180 when he sees the mug instantly encased in ice. The captain can barely believe his eyes that an actual wizard is hanging around this rundown dump. Everyone immediately switches gears and starts asking what a mighty knight could possibly be doing in a place like this. Our boy gets straight to the point and says he wants passage on the ship leaving tomorrow. He will not be dead weight taking up cargo space either. Instead, he will serve as a bodyguard and protect them from pirates and waterfolk. When he says the trip itself will be his payment, the captain warns him that the rooms smell like his armpits and are nowhere near fit for a night. Turan assures them that he will put up with whatever garbage accommodations they have as long as they drag him to the Enrolled Desert. Hearing that, the captain's jaw nearly hits the floor because the deal is way too good to pass up. He immediately accepts and welcomes the new matey aboard. Meanwhile, in a distant fortress city, fire and destruction are running wild. A lone knight battles against a horde of grimy dark elves. He manages to stab one through the face, but doing so leaves him wide open for another elf sneaking in from behind. The madman spins around and takes that one down too, but the countless enemies still standing make him realize he is completely cooked and has no chance of surviving. Right then, a massive bolt of lightning crashes down from the sky, frying every enemy as far as the eye can see. He turns around and finds the noble responsible for the miracle. Mesa orders him to regroup with his unit. The vice captain of the Arabian forces, who also happens to be her uncle, asks whether his niece is unharmed. Her uncle shamelessly says that her life is worth more than a night or two on the battlefield, so she should not overwork herself for their sake. He explains that the battle is already going well, and the only thing left is locating the underground tunnel network used by the Dark Elves. Hearing that, she requests he informs her the moment they find it, because she wants to wipe them out personally. With that, she heads off toward the next area. After the goth princess leaves, her uncle grinds his teeth in frustration. He believes the little brat is far too arrogant, and that her brother should have kept her ego in check. At the rate she is going, she will throw her life away just like her mother did. Back aboard the ship, our hero gazes out across the sea. He admits to himself that he does not even have a proper plan for where to begin searching once he arrives in Zahar territory. Since he has no clues regarding his father's status, a whole Pandora's box of possibilities is waiting for him. The biggest leads he has are a few family heirlooms. Besides those, he only has a worn-out portrait of his mother from her younger days, making it the best lead he's got. Noticing his thousand-yard stare, the captain gets curious about what is on his mind that has him practically trying to burn a hole through the ocean with his eyes. Turan simply replies that he appreciates the sea. Throwing an arm around his shoulder, the captain mentions that he was surprised when his boatswain told him their fancy knight had been learning ship management from him. Turan smiles and says he had a feeling seafaring would be interesting and a useful addition to his knowledge. Just then, a sailor announces that lunch is ready. Soon everyone gathers in the dining hall, where they are served humble sailor food like pickled cabbage. While it is nowhere near as good as what they get at inns, the captain is relieved they remembered to bring plenty of pickled cabbage. After all, he has lost quite a few men to gum disease over the years because of it. Curious, Turan asks about that, and one of the sailors explains that he discovered sour foods help protect his crew from a nasty disease that causes your gums to bleed until you eventually die. Unfortunately, sour fruits like apples spoil too quickly, so sailors make do with pickled cabbage instead. Our boy is impressed by how they figured that out. The sailor humbly admits that his brain checked out years ago. It is only common knowledge nowadays after somebody learned and spread the information. Before people discovered this, sailors used to eat waterfolk uncooked as a cure against the disease. Suddenly, the lookout shouts that a foreign vessel has appeared ahead. When the captain's advisor asks whether they are pirates, The watchman replies that the ship is flying without a crest. Preparing for the worst, the crew grabs their weapons, and the advisor asks the captain whether they should try to outrun them. However, the captain has already made up his mind. With a cheeky grin, he asks our hero if he is certain he can handle a fight. He confidently replies that he can take on anyone or anything as long as they are not a wizard. With that, the captain orders his crew to prepare for battle and leave no prisoners behind. When the ships finally draw close, the opposing crew shouts that they will spare them if they surrender. He wonders whether they actually keep that promise. He immediately leaps high into the air and lands on the enemy ship. Right after that, countless icicles shoot toward the crew and punch holes through those loudmouth pirates. Seeing that brutal slaughter, the crew's morale instantly falls through the floor. The captain reminds them that there is no point being scared because they are dead either way. They surround our MC from every direction, but he draws water-style first form and cleanly slices the first pirate's neck. The others freeze for a moment before launching a coordinated attack. Even so, Turan is strong enough to bat their blades aside and hand out instant game overs. Within minutes, he wipes out nearly half of the survivors. Suddenly, one pirate takes advantage of the chaos and grabs him from behind, hoping to drag him down with him. He drives a knife into Turan's back while the pirates in front strike at the same time with their swords. There is just one tiny problem. Their blades cannot even pierce his darn skin. After completely disrespecting them with a carefree expression, he uses the rest of the crew as practice targets for both his magic and swordsmanship. The bloodbath soon comes to an end with Turan drenched in enemy blood and the entire deck littered with corpses. Now that the coast is clear, his crew hooks their ship onto the pirate vessel. The captain and his sailors are both impressed and stunned by the way he soloed an entire pirate ship. The menace did not even leave a single straggler behind for the crew to clean up. One sailor, worried about his condition, suggests that he get checked by the ship's doctor. However, the Aura farmer casually replies that they should call an ambulance, but not for him. Later, the captain confirms that it is actually a merchant vessel that disappeared a long time ago. The pirates who captured it simply slapped on a new paint job and used it for their shady business. The captain is genuinely amazed by the way he wiped out the entire crew and claimed the ship all by himself. That is why he declares that he is now the rightful owner of the vessel. Completely caught off guard, our boy asks what the hell he is supposed to do with a massive ship. For starters, the captain suggests returning it to the original owners in Abacha. If luck is on his side, he could receive a hefty reward. Of course, that also means dealing with mountains of paperwork, bureaucracy, and enough legal nonsense to age a man years in a few weeks. Instead, it would be much easier to cross the North Sea and sell the ship before heading to the Enril Desert. Since that region is desperate for ships, buyers would gladly pay a fortune for a vessel of this size. Because of its scale, however, he will still need experienced sailors to handle everything. Our boy immediately catches on to what the captain is hinting at and promises to pay the crew properly. He then offers the captain a 20% cut in exchange for handling the grunt work involved in selling the ship and managing the crew's labor. With an offer that good, the captain eagerly assures him that he is going to get him the best deal on the entire continent. Right then, a crew member barges in with some bad news. Apparently they have a situation involving the water folk, also called merfolk. Shooting out of his chair, the captain immediately prepares for another fight. However, the sailor quickly explains that they are not under attack. The pirates had a merfolk in their possession. The captain's advisor leads them toward the ship's hold, admitting that he has not seen the precious cargo himself yet. Curious, the captain asks Turan whether he wants to see the mermaid. On the way there, Turan asks whether mermaids are really that valuable. The captain replies that eccentric nobles are willing to throw around fat stacks of money for a pretty female mermaid. Inside the ship hold, they discover the mermaid being kept prisoner. The captain is instantly disappointed when he realizes it is just a male. According to him, nobody is paying good money for one unless it happens to be a royal rumored to transform into a fish. Annoyed by the disrespect, the boy immediately shouts that he is the 47th prince, so filthy peasants like them should be bowing and apologizing. Our boy instantly realizes the runt is talking bull. The captain tells the so-called prince to turn into a little fish if he is really royalty. The boy argues that he cannot do that until he is untied and placed back into the ocean. The little scam artist genuinely thinks two grown men are going to fall for that. The captain then asks Turan what he plans to do with the kid. After learning that mermaids eat humans, his first thought is to send Fishboy to the lobby since he probably will not sell for much anyway. After all, he is not about to gamble his reputation by trusting the kid, tossing him into the sea, and looking like a complete clown when the brat immediately swims off. Watching death slowly creep closer, Fishboy drops the attitude and desperately promises that he would never eat a human. Turan remains completely unmoved, so the little troublemaker realizes he is in serious trouble. Left with no other option, he blurts out that he can lead them to a massive fortune if they spare him. Intrigued by the mention of treasure, he decides to hear the little brat out. The 47th prince claims he knows the location of Freya's treasure, the same Freya humans worshipped as a goddess. By sunset, the ship finally reaches port, and the crew is thrilled to be back on solid ground. The exhausted sailors immediately haul to the nearest tavern with plans to drink until they completely pass out. Meanwhile, up on deck, the captain asks if our hero has made up his mind. He replies that the treasure supposedly is not very far away. Figuring he can make the trip and return before morning, he sets out beneath the moonlight with the prince still wrapped in chains. Offended by the restraints, Fishboy asks whether they are really necessary since he already promised not to run away, and according to him, royalty never breaks its word. He makes one final plea if he will truly be free if the treasure is actually there. He does warn Turan not to get his hopes up much, since he has no clue what humans consider valuable treasure. Before long, they arrive at the location, and Turan dives deep beneath the water. As his eyes slowly adjust to the darkness, they widen in shock. A colossal serpent, thousands of times larger than him, towers before him while coiled around a massive rock. Shifting back a few minutes, Fishboy leads our hero to a small island in the middle of the sea. Just to be safe, he activates his search magic over the ocean. His target is the merfolk, who could be hiding an ambush here for all he knows. However, all his search reveals are different breeds of fish and sharks, with no enemies in sight. His faith in Fishboy is restored, and he's glad the little brat didn't lead him to a dungeon full of water mobs ready to harpoon a new hole in him. Soon after that, he parks his boat on the beach and takes his fish GPS for a walk. At first, the brat blanks on where the treasure is supposed to be. He finally recognizes the spot, a lake hidden inside the forest with glistening water. Turan checks beforehand to make sure it's not some endless pit to hell, and the prince confirms it shouldn't be deeper than 1,000 feet. Hearing that, he glances back at the kid. Naturally, he's not going to let him off that easy, so he ties the 47th prince to a nearby tree with a rope, which the kid doesn't seem too thrilled about. Panicking, the kid argues he'll die of starvation if Turan drowns and never comes back to untie him. Cold as ice, our hero just tells him to pray like hell for both of them that the worst-case scenario doesn't happen. With that, he takes a deep breath and dives straight into the lake. The first few hundred meters are completely dark, and he can barely see a thing. But once he reaches the bottom, the moonlight shines through and reveals a humongous, serpent-shaped monument with a man on its head. The sight is so breathtaking our guy accidentally breathes in and starts choking on the water. After getting some fresh air, he returns to the monument and takes a closer look at the man, who appears to have a giant fang piercing straight through his heart. He starts questioning whether this is really Freya's treasure and looks around for anything useful. His eyes land on a shining object hanging from the man's hip. To him, it looks like a glowing compass with 2 needles pointing toward something. Back on the surface, the 47th prince quietly waits like a good kid in detention, feeling hopeless as heck. Suddenly, Turan bursts out of the lake to catch his breath. Hoping with everything he's got that the treasure was real, the kid asks if he found anything. Our hero confirms he did and immediately tests the artifact. Right away, he notices a blue energy glowing inside Fish Prince's chest. His theory is that the compass-like artifact lets him detect the energy of living beings nearby, including their inner energy. Without wasting any time, he casts a spell that shatters the ropes and chains binding Fishboy. Completely caught off guard, the kid stares at his arms like, bruh. Deep down, he never expected him to actually find the treasure and let a prince go free. The little dude already accepted he was getting sold on the black market. Turan explains that a man always keeps his word. Since the prince kept his promise, he is keeping his side of the deal as well. Blown away by his kindness, the 47th prince swears he will tell his father not to attack him when his people eventually go to war with the humans. The protagonist tells the little goofball to quit talking nonsense and hurry back home. With that, the kid dives into the lake, and something incredible happens. His inner energy instantly grows much stronger, proving the stories were true that he really descended from royalty. The next morning, all the sailors are hurting after starting a brawl in the tavern the previous night. Realizing those good-for-nothing dirtwads will never learn without a beating, the captain's advisor mercilessly whips them until they are bleeding. That's exactly what they get for ignoring the captain's orders. As he walks past them, our hero notices he can also see a red aura around people who are losing life force. Later, he heads to meet the captain, who has gone to strike a deal with someone interested in buying his ship. Inside a medieval tavern, the captain sits across from his customer. Turan arrives just in time as they finalize the agreement. The captain then introduces him to Captain Samuel, who is willing to buy the vessel for 1,000 Zahar gold coins. Turan is a simple man. He sees free money, he's happy. The only problem is he has no clue how he's supposed to carry around a mountain of gold coins as a lone traveler. Because of that, he makes a selfish request, asking for a valuable magic tool or artifact worth the same as his share instead. Captain Samuel tells him finding something that valuable in the port city would be pretty difficult. Instead, he recommends heading to Komad, the second largest city in the Zahar territory, ruled by the Durman family of beast tamers. The captain suggests using those fat stacks to buy himself a powerful companion. In Turan's mind, nothing sounds better than getting a pet that understands him, just like Aziz did before. With the deal settled, the crew sets sail once again. As everyone celebrates all the free money raining in, the watchman suddenly snaps them back to reality with a warning that real rain clouds are approaching. He quickly corrects himself, though, that they are not ordinary rain clouds. His experience gives him a bad feeling that it is a storm, so he warns the crew to lock in. Heavy waves begin crashing into the Jolly Roger, and the captain's advisor immediately orders everyone to clear the deck. Suddenly, a massive wave nearly flips the entire ship over and launches half the crew into the air. Thinking it's over, they all start saying their prayers, but our wizard freezes them in mid-air before bringing them safely back aboard one by one. With a simple flick of his finger, he tightens the sail, clears the deck, and gets everyone back on the ship. Down in the ship's hold, he checks to make sure the crew is all right. After seeing how he secured the sail and protected his men, the captain sincerely thanks our hero for saving them from certain death. He then asks if their ship can survive a storm like this. The captain admits all they can do now is trust the man at the helm. An even bigger problem is that his crew could die from hypothermia. The wizard tells everyone to gather together, instantly making the captain panic because the man thinks he is about to light a fire inside his wooden ship. Our guy reassures him he'll be careful not to let it spread, then snaps his fingers. A fireball forms in his hand, and he carefully disperses its heat throughout the room. The captain is left speechless after witnessing a level of magic control he never thought was possible. At that moment, he finally understands why the elders always said humanity should serve the wizards. Even though the wizards stand above them, they care for the people just as much. The scene shifts to the northern city of Komad. While the crew unloads all the valuable cargo they recovered from the pirate ship, the captain hands our protagonist his payment for working as a bodyguard. Turan thinks the amount is a little excessive, but the captain assures him that even the sailors chimed in from their own pay as a show of appreciation. Since he cannot refuse such a sincere gesture, he promises to treat them to a meal later. Right then, an overly excited jacked crewman shouts his name, and the entire crew thanks him at the top of their lungs. The captain and his advisor also bow respectfully, promising they will never forget all he did for them. After that, he heads into Komad City, which is packed to the teeth with people. As he senses the life force of everyone around him, he picks up a powerful magic signal. He immediately walks over to the knight and asks if he works for the Durman family, noting the incredibly strong aura surrounding him. The knight nearly wets himself, instantly bowing and asking for his superior's orders. Turan introduces himself as a wizard from Abicha and boldly orders the man to arrange a meeting with the head of House Durman. The soldier quickly escorts him to the Durman family estate. Once there, they provide him with robes worthy of a noble of his status. Soon, a man with absurdly powerful life force sits across from him and compliments how well he pulls off the outfit. The JoJo character introduces himself as Cal Durman, head of the house. He immediately finds it strange that Turan has yet to mention his family name. Curious, he asks which great family his unexpected guest belongs to, and our boy replies that he is Turan Brahms from the Guardian family's lineage. Getting straight to the point, he explains that he came here to purchase one of the magical beasts the Durman family is famous for. Cal Durman agrees and decides to have his daughter show him all the beasts currently available. Before that, however, Turan asks whether his face reminds him of anyone. Sharp as ever, he points out that the Durman family head reacted strangely when he first saw him. Surprisingly, Cal Durman openly admits that Turan resembles someone he knows well. Later, our hero walks through the hallway alongside Cal Durman's daughter, who cannot help wondering why a minor noble from a branch family is so wealthy. After all, he traveled an absurd distance across the continent just to buy one of their magical beasts. The beauty then complements the bodyguard potential of his guardian bloodline. Turan, however, is far more focused on whether Cal Durman was reminded of his mother or his father when he first saw him. While some of his facial features resemble his mother, he is not an exact match that would instantly ring a bell. The thought crosses his mind that the family head may have recognized his father instead, the man he knows very little about. Putting that aside, the two finally arrive at the Durman family stable. A long hallway stretches out before them. When he glances to the side, he spots a pair of majestic wolves. The fact that every type of beast is kept in a habitat that closely matches its natural environment genuinely impresses him. When his eyes settle on a horse, he asks about its price. Since the beast was raised with the utmost care, she explains that it would cost at least 4,000 gold coins. Turan instantly feels his palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. That horse costs more than all his money combined, with a few extra premium phones thrown on top for good measure. For a moment he considers giving up on the idea of buying a tamed beast altogether. Then again, it is not like he can casually haul a sack filled with 2,000 gold coins across the desert on his back. Just then, he notices a majestic bird whose feathers shine brighter than polished scales. The intimidating falcon stares directly at him, looking more like it is evaluating how much he would sell for than greeting a potential owner. Turan asks about its price, and she explains that this one is actually cheaper than most of the others. When he hears it will only cost 1,500 coins, he thinks it is a bargain considering the massive amount of mana it possesses. As for its special ability, she explains that the bird can understand human language and is capable of carrying him through the sky. Even though intelligent beasts like this usually sell instantly, this particular one is not exactly flying off the shelves. Convinced that nobody is smart enough or worthy enough to command it, the beast refuses to obey anyone it considers beneath it. Looking directly into the smug falcon's golden eyes, Turan asks if it can understand him. The bird humors the dumb question with a nod, so he smugly remarks that it is pretty clever for an animal so ugly. Cal Durman's daughter clarifies that the falcon understands language perfectly well, but nobody has ever managed to teach it how to write. The stubborn rascal refuses to cooperate, so the family considers all the time, effort and food spent raising it a complete waste. Even though she has already given up, Turan still asks the beast if there is anything it desires. In a strange turn of events, the beast points its talon directly at him. That leaves the lady completely stunned, since this is the first time the bird brain has listened to anyone. Putting that aside, when he asks if there is any special reason it is interested in him, the falcon simply turns its head away. Our hero agrees on the condition that it learns how to write from him, and the two strike a deal. With that, Cal Durman personally uses contract magic to seal the bond between master and beast. The majestic falcon instantly perches itself on its master's arm, and Cal congratulates him on acquiring such a fine partner. Just then, the family head's curiosity gets the better of him. He tells Turan he simply has to ask, and demands to know whether there is any connection between him and Lord Talus. Surprised to hear that name for the first time, Turan gives him a genuinely confused look. Cal Durman immediately realizes it must just be a coincidence that the two look alike, so he tells our boy not to worry about it. Curious why he resembles this Lord Talus so much that the man brought it up himself, Turan cannot let it go, so he asks a question of his own, wondering if Cal happens to know a lady named Bees, his mother's name. To help jog his memory, he shows him the sketch he drew of her. After taking a long look at the drawing, Cal jokes that he definitely never met her. After all, he would never forget a woman who looks that fine. Hearing that, our wizard gets his answer. Then he suddenly sends his pet falcon into the air. Cal Durman asks what exactly he is trying to do. Turan flashes him a cheeky grin and says he paid for his purchase in full. Now it is time to test whether the bird can really fly like he claimed, so he grabs onto its legs and lets it carry him out of the stable. As someone who has not learned flight magic like Mesa, he has a blast soaring through the sky. Later, he returns to the Durman family dining hall, where Cal Durman's daughter introduces him to the others. A rough-looking brick wall of a man immediately asks if he came from Carmane, which is located in that filthy Arabian country. The daughter is offended by his rude attitude since her guest does not belong to that family of blood-sucking vampires. The gorilla guy, Dolph Marin from some branch of the Guardian bloodline, greets him properly with a firm handshake. That firmness quickly turns into a bone-crushing grip as it becomes a test of strength. Our boy takes the power move seriously and activates his physical enhancement. Dolph is impressed that he can withstand the crushing force of his grip. Annoyed by their irritating ego contest, the mother orders them to stop their nonsense and asks where that stubborn bird is. The main reason she came was to see the arrogant harpy finally act humble for once. Turan tells her he is tired from riding practice all morning, so he sent it out for a flight. The mother demands that he call it back, so Turan orders the falcon to return through their contract bond. Watching the grumpy bird quietly perch on its master's arm like a well-behaved animal, the mother tries to pet it. The falcon instantly pulls away, refusing to make contact with her filthy hag hands. Karen goes ballistic and yells that she would have raised the little runt with far better manners than some budget noble from a third-rate family. My guy silently orders the falcon to behave before it reflexively pecks Karen's head off. Later, a huge banquet is held as the family gathers for dinner and gossips about current affairs. The mother openly wishes that annoying vampire Mesa either dies on the battlefield or gets assassinated. She jokes that the walking skeleton might keel over on her own before that even happens. A nasty smirk spreads across her face as she pities the poor sod who ends up marrying that hoe. Turan stays quiet the entire time and keeps his composure. Next, the mother complains that unlike Arabian, it is still unclear whether Perga, Rahman, or Alma will become the next family head. The daughter comments that things would be much easier if Lord Talus simply made his decision. Surprised to hear that name come up again, our hero asks who this big shot actually is. Acting as if everyone should already know, the girl explains that he is the family head's younger brother. However, everyone knows the Zahar family's true number 2 is the one making decisions behind the scenes for his brother. Remembering that Cal Durman thought he was related to this influential figure, Turan starts wondering if his father was not some small-time knight after all. After lunch, he heads out to a park with his falcon friend. He cannot get it out of his mind that the Durman family head thought he was related to the Zahar family's number 2 leader. He realizes he should tread that connection carefully. If he ever becomes a stain on Lord Talus's name, he could get snuffed out instantly. Snapping him out of it, his bird buddy writes in the sand that he is actually a black eagle. Happy to see it learning well despite a few adorable spelling mistakes, he asks his pet to pick a name for itself. The bird digs into the sand again, writing that it does not have one in mind yet. Curious, he then asks the black eagle why it specifically chose him. In response, Bird Buddy writes that he is a good guy and that they are a good match on the inside. He squats down and fixes the hilariously bad spelling mistakes, though he wonders whether that good match on the inside has something to do with his bloodline, a mix of Zahar blood and another great family. His peaceful moment is suddenly ruined when Gorilla Guy shows up and invites him to go hunting. Bro immediately shoots the Great Ape's offer down, explaining that he will be leaving Komad. That leaves Macho Monkey looking disappointed because Turan did not even bother telling his good friend. The man seriously thinks they bonded over that one handshake. Turan knows the type. People who act all sunshine and smiles on the surface while secretly wanting to stand above everyone else. The guy offers to show him around on his last day since he knows the city like the back of his hand. However, Turan sends Gorilla Guy away with a polite no thank you. The way Dolph accepts it so easily makes him suspicious because the big lug clearly has some ulterior motive. Later, when it is finally time for him to leave, the knight from House Durman follows him all the way to the city gate. Anyway, he buys a travel guide for the Enril Desert. As he walks out, he reads the guide written by a Zahar noble and endorsed by the family for its useful information. However, he picks up a suspicious magic signal in the crowd. Both master and pet take a good look at the stalker, and they already know exactly who it is. Shifting to the city exit, a pair of knights see Turan on his way out. With that, he prepares himself for another long journey on his own. The Black Eagle looks at him eagerly, ready to take to the skies. However, he flashes a cheeky smile and tells it that he is in the mood for a nice walk through the sandy scenery instead. By nightfall, he has already put a good distance between himself and the city. Once he is sure nobody else is around, he casually tells his stalker that he can come out now. He even name-drops Dolph before seeing the hulking mountain of muscle. Dolph is visibly surprised that he knew he was being followed. He sarcastically replies that he would not have spent the whole day walking through the desert like a complete clown if he did not. Acting all grand, Dolph laughs and claims he only followed his buddy because the desert is a dangerous place for a scrawny little fella. Our wizard immediately tells him to cut the bull because he knows Dolph is after his mana. The blunt accusation leaves Macho Monkey speechless for a moment. Then a devious grin spreads across his face as he realizes his prey knowingly walked into this situation. In his mind, Turan is either incredibly confident or completely brain-dead. Realizing he has the advantage, Macho Monkey questions what gives him the confidence to act like he has the upper hand. Our boy proceeds to roast his entire bloodline. He points out that the historical bloodline clearly figured out his pathetic guardian ability only boosts defense and does almost nothing for his physical strength. That comment lands right where it hurts. and the butthurt baboon immediately tells him to shut up and hand over his mana. That is enough talking for Turan, so he starts the fight by sending his black eagle into the sky. Dolph stares in astonishment as his opponent vanishes right before his eyes. A nasty grin spreads across the gorilla's face when he realizes Turan is using concealment magic, a type of spell mostly used by spies. He laughs and yells that there is nothing impressive about stealth magic because it is easy to see through. However, that confidence vanishes almost immediately when he senses nothing except the desert wind smacking his chiseled mug. Dolph starts having a whole crisis as he wonders why he cannot sense his target at all. There are no footprints, no sounds, and no trace of his presence anywhere. It is at that moment that he realizes he picked a fight with the wrong Zahar. Suddenly, his thick skull gets smacked from behind by a mana-infused rock. As he tries to process what just hit him, another stone slams into him. Then another, and another. Before long, he finds himself getting pelted from every direction by an endless barrage of rocks. Desperate to find his attacker, he creates a ring of flames around himself to light up the area. Instead, our boy responds by summoning flames of his own high in the sky. The fire twists into blazing hot Beyblades that immediately begin barbecuing Meatman alive. In desperation, Dolph stomps the ground with all his strength, creating a massive shockwave that should force Turan out of hiding. When that fails to reveal anything, the meathead starts swinging at empty air and yelling for him to show himself. At that point, he realizes he is not fighting some random guy from the Guardian bloodline, and quickly changes his game plan. Knowing there is no beating a Zahar's stealth magic in the desert at night, he ditches his heavy armor and starts running for his life. The big lug believes he can outrun Turan because the Zahar bloodline is not known for physical enhancement. Just then, he glances up at the sky and finally realizes where his opponent has been the entire time. While Turan praises his endurance for an average Guardian bloodline user, the man drops to his knees in defeat. He desperately begs our boy to spare his brain-damaged existence. Unfortunately for him, it is too late because Turan does not take prisoners. Showing absolutely no mercy, he showers the poor bastard in flames. After all that roasting, all that is left of the buff macho man is an overcooked steak. Turan admits to himself that bringing him down was no easy feat. Thanks to his legendary bloodline, the guy was far stronger than the average wizard. There is no doubt that against a Zahar guardian like that, his mana-infused stone throw would have been completely useless. He is going to need a stronger attack if he wants something capable of punching through hide that thick. Putting that thought aside, he moves on to the main prize. He drains the Guardian's powerful mana, but part of it is also absorbed into the Freyan artifact. Taking a closer look, he makes a huge discovery. Besides sensing mana, the artifact can actually store mana inside itself in liquid form. Confused about how to harvest it, he wonders whether he is just supposed to down the magic juice like it's a chug jug. Anyway, the next day he rides the Eagle Express enroll across the desert until he reaches the city surrounding the Tomb of Deities. There, he tricks a woman at the inn into believing he is a runaway noble, which impresses her since traveling alone is ridiculously dangerous. He quickly steers the conversation toward what he actually cares about. He wants to get inside the Tomb of Deities. According to the book he read, all you needed was a fat stack of cash to get in. The innkeeper jokingly remarks that he must be loaded if he can even afford books. However, she explains that money alone will not get him inside anymore. Not long ago, the guards completely stopped letting people enter, even merchants, because some big shot showed up. When Turan asks who this VIP is, she explains that members of the Zahar family arrived. The scene then shifts inside the tomb, where a terrified warrior frantically screams for Purga Zahar. Sick of his non-stop yapping, Purga snaps at the bozo to shut his mouth before he gets them all exposed. The warrior completely loses it, blaming Purga for dragging them into this nightmare and getting everyone cooked. Purga fires back that the genius was the one who swore absolute loyalty and promised to support him no matter what it took for him to become the next family head. On the inside, though, Purga is panicking just as much as everyone else while his men huddle together in a circle, ready to make their last stand. It is explained that the Tomb of Deities hides a secret, and whoever uncovers it has a high chance of inheriting the family throne. Purga has spent months searching for it, and was just about ready to accept that it was nothing more than a bedtime story. However, he finally discovered the hidden chamber and was already imagining his privileged dump truck on the family throne. Reality had other plans. Instead of a coronation, he was greeted by nightmare fuel with the nightmare-inducing potential to traumatize a grown man. One of his subordinates asks how much water they have left, only to learn they are down to the very last of their supply. A horrifying howl suddenly echoes throughout the tomb, sounding almost like a spoken word. Purga freezes. Even though he has never heard that language before, he somehow understands exactly what it means. Back in the city, Turan is less than thrilled that those Zahar dirtbags are hogging the entire tomb. Exploring the city is not exactly an option either, since somebody might recognize his talisman like Cal Durman did. While wandering through the bazaar, he notices a merchant selling saltpeter, proudly claiming it can extend a person's lifespan. The protagonist racks his brain trying to remember where he has heard that name before. Then it clicks. It was mentioned in the arsonist's journal. He had long since given up on recreating those recipes because he assumed the ingredients would be impossible to find. Now, though, he finally has hope of obtaining the fire spirit, giving him the kind of firepower that can rival the arsonist's legendary flames. He then asks the clueless merchant about the next ingredient, sulfur, but the man has never even heard of it. Luckily, another vendor points him toward volcanic regions like Komad, where it can be found. After that, Turan heads back into the desert to train his attack magic. During practice, he realizes that using sand instead of stone as a projectile comes with some huge advantages. Its malleable nature lets him reshape it into sharper projectiles while they are already flying through the air. Or he can spread it into a wide area attack to catch enemies completely off guard. On top of that, he can manipulate the sand to pin opponents in place and block their vision at the same time. Putting training aside, nearly a week has passed since he arrived in the city, making him wonder why the Zahar nobles are still trapped inside the tomb. He contemplates simply ditching the tomb and heading to the next city, but then he gets a galaxy brain idea that nobody has ever thought of before. If nobody sees him sneak in, no one can stop him from going inside. And even if he does get caught, he can always haul it out of there and never come back to this city. Just then, he snaps out of his thoughts after hearing a guard dragging a body bag while the poor guy inside grunts like an animal. Even the other guard gets fed up with the non-stop noise. They decide to rough the victim up, making sure not to overdo it since they have orders to bring him back alive. After beating the bag into silence, they head deeper into the tomb. With his stealth magic active, Turan quietly follows behind. It just does not sit right with him to ignore somebody getting treated like that, so he tails them into the eerily silent tomb. After descending a long flight of stairs, he spots a massive gate built into the floor. Surrounded by stacks of crates filled with supplies, the guards drag their captive over. The poor guy nervously asks what they are planning to do with him. Turan immediately realizes this whole situation is sketchy as hell when they refuse to answer a single question, and somehow look even more terrified than the man they kidnapped. The man in charge orders the victim to pick up a barrel and walk through the gate. As if his free will has vanished, the captive silently obeys and steps into the black vortex without resisting. Watching from a distance, Turan quickly figures out they used animal control magic on a human to force him into submission. The Zahar men quietly wonder whether Lord Purga is still alive. They question whether it is the right call to quietly keep sending food and water inside. However, the man in charge reminds them that his orders are crystal clear. They are not to notify the family unless they want to hand Purga's brothers free ammunition against him. Hearing that, Turan is stunned. The next heir to the Zahar family is currently trapped inside the tomb. Suddenly, everything clicks into place. No wonder the Zahars locked down such a ridiculously valuable location. As he stares at the gate, a crazy idea pops into his head. With one rescue job, he could make the future head of the Zahar family owe him a massive favor. Plus, there is something inside the tomb he wants to get his hands on, and a little danger is not about to stop him. Without a second thought, he dives straight into the black pool without anyone noticing. The moment he gets inside, though, he is hit with post-nut clarity. It dawns on him that something influenced his mind, making him believe he absolutely had to rescue Purga Zahar from whatever danger is inside. For all he knows, Purga could be a selfish prick who does not give a flying duck about repaying favors. A few minutes later, he finally reaches the other side, where he finds the kidnapped man lying on the ground having a violent seizure in front of Purga and his squad. Purga is annoyed that his brain-dead subordinates outside sent another useless guy. Tired of Seizure Man's grunting ruining his mealtime, he orders one of his men to shut the guy up any means necessary. Seeing what kind of scumbag casually treats human lives like disposable trash, Turan immediately realizes there is no shot he is collecting a favor from this clown. Just as he is about to step away, a mysterious voice suddenly echoes inside his head, telling him that he is not the Night Hunter. The story explains that, in ancient times, the Enroll grasslands were ruled by gigantic creatures that looked straight out of Attack on Titan from Walmart. Their chunky bodies were so enormous, so they devoured everything in sight as fuel, eventually turning the once fertile land into a lifeless desert. As their hunger grew, plants were no longer enough. The monsters began hunting humans instead, satisfying their endless thirst with human blood. Unable to tolerate their greed any longer, a lone warrior set out one fateful night to settle the score with those oversized potatoes. Volley after volley of magical arrows lit up the night sky like a fireworks show. That legendary warrior was the Night Hunter, the hero who saved humanity from extinction. As a reward, the three biggest baddies of that era were served to him. Together they had three sons who each inherited incredible powers. The first inherited the Zahar bloodline's ability to erase his own presence. The second became a shadow monarch, capable of commanding every shadow around him. The third was blessed with unmatched mastery over poison. But after the Night Hunter died, the three brothers turned on each other, each determined to become the ruler of the Enro Desert. Right from the start, the brother with the stealth ability wanted absolutely nothing to do with the power struggle, so he dropped out of the race. That left the other two brothers feuding for years, and while they were busy with their stupid rivalry, the people of the desert paid the price. That is why the oldest brother, the one who refused to compete, eventually stepped in. He beat his two brothers after they were completely worn out fighting each other. That man would go on to become the Zahar family founder. Back in the tomb, Turan has no clue why a mysterious voice keeps repeating that ancient geezer's name inside his head. It makes him wonder if this same voice is what lured the Zahar nobles into the tomb in the first place. Since he carries Zahar blood himself, he figures that is probably why he can hear it too. He quickly activates his stealth again when he senses something ominous approaching. His compass picks up an incredibly powerful mana signature, so he circles around the pillars to get a better look at whatever is coming. The source turns out to be a creepy, muscular skinhead shambling around with a permanently hunched back. Naturally, our boy does what any completely sane person would do and walks even closer to inspect it. The moment he enters its range, the creepy bastard from Outlast immediately locks onto him. Turan is completely caught off guard because the creature can see straight through his stealth, something even the Zahar nobles were unable to do. Shouting in some bizarre language, the skinhead charges at him with speed that blows past all of his expectations. Turan responds by blasting it with fire magic, hoping to turn the creepy freak into a well-done barbecue. The creatures panic the moment they catch fire, giving him the perfect chance to haul their buns out of there. What puzzles him is that they can effortlessly detect him through stealth, yet their detection range is incredibly short. Once he creates enough distance, they lose track of him. Now safely out of reach and standing in the perfect sniping position, our rock-throwing wizard gets ready to remind the skinheads who is really in charge. At full power, he eats a mana-infused stone that punches clean through the first creature's skull. Interestingly, Turan notices the others barely react to one of their own getting dropped. Once the area is clear, he walks over to the corpse and absorbs its mana. To his surprise, he gains almost nothing. That makes no sense since a magical creature with that much raw physical strength should have far more mana than this. The mystery behind the monster's origin only gets deeper. Right then, Turan hears Purga and his cronies closing in on the commotion he caused, so he slips deeper into the shadows. When Purga's men find the lone corpse lying there, they are confused about whether they killed it themselves. They are so exhausted that their sense of time has become completely warped. But sharp as a razor, Purga is certain there is an imposter among them. His subordinates suggest it might be a rescue party sent to save them. Yet Purga immediately shoots the idea down. If it were a rescue party, they would have heard the sounds of fighting already. To smoke out the mole, he orders Sir Galton to set traps throughout the area. At the same time, another knight is ordered to keep a light spell active at all times so they can spot the imposter from every direction. His men ask if they should hunt the intruder, but Purga's personality is far nastier than that. He wants the imposter to wear himself down and serve as bait until he eventually walks into one of their traps. Quietly watching from a distance, Turan hears every word of their plan. After that, our hero shadows their group for 3 days. Thanks to the magic vision from his artifact, avoiding every trap is easy even in complete darkness. Meanwhile, Purga's goons unironically end up getting cooked by their own traps like losers. While they stumble around in the dark like dinkwads, Turan marks every area he explores and continues searching for the exit. Sometimes things get so dangerous that entire swarms of the creatures attack, making it impossible for him to survive alone. Like the true gigachad he is, Turan simply kites the horde straight into Purga's group and lets them deal with the zombie swarm instead. Meanwhile, the noble dirtbag is convinced they keep getting attacked because of the lights. With each passing day, the amount of supplies keeps increasing. The henchmen outside continue sending food and water through the gate, assuming everyone delivering the supplies is still alive. Watching those greedy scumbags celebrate their growing stash of food and water only makes Turan hate them even more. Suddenly, Purga and his cronies hear a loud howl, signaling that another massive swarm is heading their way. Our hero takes advantage of the distraction and uses it as the perfect chance to explore deeper. After a while, he discovers a humongous gate encrusted with blue gemstones. It is obvious the door is not meant for humans to pass through, making him wonder if this could be his way out. The moment that thought crosses his mind, he sees something that shakes him to his core. The bulge in the middle of the door opens like an eyelid, revealing a massive eyeball. The giant eye looks directly at him before declaring an error because he does not meet the minimum system requirements. But then it notices his magic compass and detects Waverider and Mimic magic. Turan can only stare in confusion as the eye does a complete 180 on its assessment and suddenly announces that he qualifies after all. It then asks whether he wishes to enter. Thinking about Waverider and Mimic magic, he wonders if these are bloodline abilities he has yet to awaken. If so, that would mean he carries the blood of more than one noble household. Either way, the eye repeats its question, asking if he chooses to enter. Turan quickly realizes the eyeball is not actually looking at him, but at his magical compass, which is what fulfills the requirements. Before making his decision, he asks the eyeball to explain Waverider and Mimic magic. After checking the system to make sure there are no restrictions, it reveals that Waverider grants water breathing, water manipulation, and enhanced physical abilities underwater. Meanwhile, Mimic magic allows its user to absorb and imitate other creatures. Turan possesses neither of those abilities, leaving him wondering why he does not have to prove he can actually use them. For his second question, he asks what exactly the eyeball is. It replies that it is the spirit guarding the door. Since a guardian usually means something valuable lies beyond, Turan immediately asks about the dungeon's purpose and how to find the exit. The spirit explains that within the labyrinth of the Night Hunter, one must slay the giant chief using the correct 4 types of magic. Only then will the new Night Hunter awaken. The thought of attaining the same status as the legendary hero sounds pretty sweet in Turan's mind. Meanwhile, the Guardian explains that the exit will only appear after the giant chief is slain. Suddenly, the Guardian starts glitching as a system error occurs. The malfunctioning eyeball announces that only 2 of the 4 required magic types are present. The Hunter Pursuer and Shadow Alchemist are missing. Even so, the glitch causes the door to open despite the conditions not being fulfilled. It attempts to contact its creator, but the creator is no longer there. Left to make its own decision, the Guardian autonomously releases the giant chief. Turan calmly braces himself for whatever comes next. The massive doors slowly swing open, revealing a gigantic version of the skinhead creatures he has been fighting for the past 3 days. His eyes widen as the bone-chilling hunchback steps outside. Fixing Turan with a spine-tingling glare, it declares that he is unworthy of becoming the Night Hunter, and that all imposters must be erased. Without a second thought, our stoner wizard launches a preemptive strike straight at its thick skull. He follows it up with the Arabian bloodline's lightning magic and the arsonist's fire magic. Shielding itself with its charred hands, the giant chief scoffs that the attack merely tickled him. That is all our boy needs to hear to realize he is completely cooked, so he immediately runs for his life. The only way he stands a chance is by using Lord Purga as royal bait, so he leads the behemoth deeper into the labyrinth. On the way, an entire swarm of hunchbacks blocks his path, ready to tear him apart. Turan enters Ultra Instinct, weaving through the monsters like he's doing a real-life no-hit speedrun. After somehow making it through the entire swarm alive, he is genuinely impressed with himself. But before he can celebrate, one of the skinheads that slipped past his radar ambushes him. Using the Guardian Bloodline artifact, he pours everything he has into defense. Even the continent's strongest defensive magic fails to stop the blow, and the creature's overwhelming brute strength gives him deep cuts. Taking no chances, Turan draws his hidden dagger and launches a counterattack, slicing the creature's head clean off. His curiosity only grows about what kind of person could have created a labyrinth capable of producing godlike beings, and for what purpose. The giant chief gives him no time to think, so he sprints toward Purga's party as fast as he can. While there is not much he knows for certain, one thing is clear. He has to slay that ugly freak if he wants to escape this hell. Soon, Purga's party comes into view. The Zahar family successor effortlessly cuts down the trash mobs with his staff, before checking to see whether his men are still alive. Even though they are completely exhausted, they somehow manage to survive the endless waves. Just then, the spiky-haired knight suddenly goes on high alert after hearing something massive approaching. Purga turns toward the darkness to see where the noise is coming from. A deafening howl echoes through the labyrinth as a gigantic figure slowly emerges from the shadows. The Zahar bloodline mages hear its words far more clearly than before, leaving them confused about why it keeps rambling about death and the Night Hunter. Purga snaps the fools out of it, reminding them they have a much bigger problem coming right at them. The saying goes, you snooze, you lose. In this case, losing means getting insta-killed by the giant chief's claws. Furious after watching his closest comrades get slaughtered, Purga prepares to bring the freak down. One of his men drives a blade into the giant chief's leg to pin it in place. Like swatting an annoying fly that buzzed too loud, the monster smashes the poor guy into oblivion with a single slap. Another enraged knight unleashes his strongest fire magic, but the giant chief extinguishes both the flames and the caster the old-fashioned way, with one crushing swing of its fist. One by one, Purga's men are wiped out before they can even fight back. Meanwhile, the trash monsters pin the Zahar family successor down, leaving him helpless as his comrades are butchered before his eyes. That is when Purga notices that even the mysterious imposter has been forced to join the fight if he wants to survive. While our boy deals with the trash mobs, Purga focuses entirely on the boss. His strongest subordinate, the spiky-haired knight, charges forward with his axe and buries a powerful slash deep into the giant chief's calf. The knight is absolutely livid that he was the first one to land a solid hit on the ugly bastard. Famous last words, because the very same leg he injured kicks him halfway to death. Watching all of his strongest men fall, Purga realizes he has nothing left. Even if he somehow escapes this place, he no longer has any chance of inheriting the Zahar family throne. All it took was one ugly bastard to destroy everything he had worked toward his entire life. Boiling with rage, he hurls one of his glaives at the giant chief's neck, but the monster smacks it away like a gangster. Purga immediately follows up, rushing in with his other glaive and carving deep wounds into the giant chief's right arm. A powerful blue aura then engulfs him as the enraged noble goes all in for the finishing blow. His attack severs the monster's right arm and tears a massive gash across its chiseled chest. Just as the Zahar family's successor begins celebrating his victory, the giant chief shoots him a glare that screams, "Your career ends here." Purga barely has time to process what is happening before a massive claw punches another hole in his body. In his final moments, he wonders where everything went wrong. Right in the middle of his midlife crisis, the giant chief dares the imposter to show himself. Purga cannot understand why the monster is still looking for someone else after slaughtering every last one of his men. That's when Turan drops his stealth and appears overhead, ready to decapitate the giant chief. Realizing the little rat used his highness as royal bait, Purga is absolutely pissed. The giant chief is just as mad at him, raring to rip the fake night hunter to pieces. But it's too late, as our hero brings a heavy axe crashing straight down onto its nape. Unlucky for him, the axe does not go all the way through. He breaks into a heavy sweat as he realizes this titan is not the kind of scrub he can just one-shot. As he senses an attack coming, he braces himself while the giant chief slams him with its stubby arm. It becomes clear that the one thing he is missing is raw offensive power. Looking at his artifact, he knows he does not have much time, but he still decides to take the gamble. Looking ahead, the giant chief is still out for his blood and keeps calling him the fake night hunter. At that moment, his eyes glow blue and he vanishes from the spot just as the giant attacks. He reappears right behind its feet, and something about his aura feels completely different from before. He brings his heavy axe crashing down onto the boss, who cries out in agony. It is furious both from the pain and because this menace has wiped out its entire crew. With cold focus, the shepherd wizard does not waste a moment to leap onto the giant chief's body and carve another deep slash into its neck. The giant chief roars in pain and rage as it swears that it will not let Turan leave alive. But while Purga's body lies cold on the ground, our hero keeps hacking into the boss's nape until its head finally rolls off like a bowling ball. Suddenly, Turan takes a deep breath when he switches out of killer machine mode. He thanks the heavens for the bloodline he stole from Dolph. Looking at the empty compass, he realizes his experiment is a success, and mimic magic works exactly the way he imagined. Although its Waverider magic is still a mystery, he feels the stolen power inside him slowly fade away, lasting around half an hour at most. After that, our hero walks over to Purga, who looks like he already has one foot in the grave. He remembers that one nail pierced the guy's lung while the other struck his heart. Purga mutters something, but our boy figures these might be his final words. Just then, he hears Purga beg him to save his life, and he replies that it is impossible for someone like him. The light in Purga's eyes slowly fades as he continues begging to be saved. Putting that aside, he looks at all the bodies scattered around and figures it would be a complete waste to just leave them there. So he absorbs the mana from all of Purga's dead men along with the giant chief. He thinks it is a fitting end for someone who treated commoners' lives like used toilet paper to die right after uncovering the labyrinth's secret. Still, he decides to remember the scumbag's name. Soon, the artifact fills with magic from different bloodlines, each represented by a different color. The thought of using multiple bloodlines at the same time intrigues our hero, but he lets it slide for now. He is already satisfied with being twice as strong as when he sneaked into the secret room. Many nobles spend their entire lives trying to reach this level. Since he wants to stay off the Zahar family's radar, he leaves behind all the magic items they used. Before leaving, he also uses search to locate every trace of his presence and erase it. Next, he heads to the door, where he declares that he is the one who killed the giant chief. After a brief moment of suspense, he notices the security mechanism is busted. So he casually pushes the door open, and his eyes go wide the moment he sees what is waiting inside. Two Templar statues stand guard beside the throne with a sword hanging above it, while a gate sits in the middle of the room. What grabs Turan's attention the most, however, is the book resting beside the throne. He is confused by the book, which apparently documents an experiment on the perfect process for obtaining the Night Hunter class advancement. Inside, it explains that someone with the Hunter, Pursuer, Shadow, and Alchemist classes who clears the labyrinth can become a Night Hunter. At the end, it reveals that a mechanism was added so anyone who qualified would naturally be drawn inside. After reading that, he finally realizes this is why he felt such a powerful urge to enter the secret room. Then, he finds a list of the materials used to create the creepy monsters outside, and the core ingredient turns out to be the Queen Giant's flesh. As he reads through the rest of the journal, he fails to understand most of it. One thing is clear though, this place was designed to develop the Night Hunter, but because of his compass artifact, it ended up picking him by mistake. He remembers that the Shadow and Alchemist bloodlines were driven to extinction by the Zahar family decades ago. Yet the thought of artificially awakening a class like the Arsonist crosses his mind. Setting that aside, he heads for the gate before it closes. It drops him out on the other side, some distance away from the city gate. The next day, he comforts his eagle buddy, who aggressively scratches words into the sand to show how worried he was. Since he got what he came for, Turan packs his things and sets off. Now that the Zahar family's successor is dead, tensions are bound to explode across the desert. As an outsider, he would be the #1 suspect. That is why he decides to put the search for his mother on hold and keep a low profile for a few months until things cool down. He points his Eagle Express private jet toward the snowy biome filled with massive glacier mountains. According to the books, this place is the Gray Zone, the battlefield where the Great War between the Zahar and Arabian families once took place. Surprisingly, he spots a caravan racing away from somewhere at full speed. That makes him wonder if they are running from something dangerous. Since there is nowhere else to go, he follows after them to the nearby city of Kalamap. The guards are surprised to see this dripped-out traveler with a big black bird with enough attitude to start a fight perched on his shoulder. Right then, one of the guards recognizes that he is a wizard and respectfully welcomes him into the city. While he is glad he gets special treatment for being a wizard, he also feels he should buy some cotton clothes to blend in with the locals. Playing it safe, our hero asks the guard to guide him to a place where he can stay for the night. Unsure how to explain it, the guard bluntly tells him the city no longer has a lord. During the fight against the Dark Elf invaders, the lord lost his life. Not a single knight or noble wizard survived, so the city is completely defenseless at the moment. Hearing that, Turan awkwardly wonders what he should do since he already knows what comes next. The knight suddenly drops to all fours and desperately begs him to become the city's lord for everyone's sake. The wizard is not sure how he is supposed to react, since he can't spend the rest of his life guarding the people of this city. At the same time, his conscience would not let him simply abandon innocent people either. He gives the guards a bit of hope when he asks them to explain how things ended up like this before he makes any decision. So the guard leads him inside and explains that it all started 3 weeks earlier. A pair of monster hunters were found dead on the street with their swords left in the same terrible condition as their bodies. Confused, our hero asks if they were not attacked by some nearby monster. The guard confirms that a pair of knights were sent to investigate because the place was only a day's journey from the city, but none of them came back even after 3 days. After that, the lord sent his younger brother, who also vanished along with the 10 knights sent after him. When our hero asks if the lord personally went next, the knight sadly confirms that he did, and only one knight managed to crawl back alive while barely hanging on. With his final breath, He says it was a wraith. As soon as Turan hears wraith, his interest is piqued. The guard unfortunately explains that wraiths are creatures controlled by dark elves. That means it is only a matter of time before those dirtbags assault the city, so almost everyone has already fled. Our hero wonders why the neighboring cities did not send any reinforcements, but apparently none of them can afford to spare troops during times like these. However, our hero believes they simply do not want to risk losing their own soldiers, which honestly makes perfect sense when the threat is still unknown. Now that he understands the situation, he makes it clear that this is way above his pay grade. Hearing that, the guard immediately drops to his knees and begs him to become the shepherd who guides these lost sheep. Those words awaken a deep memory from when his mother taught him that nobles are like shepherds who care for commoners. He immediately asks the guard if that saying is common around these parts, and the man replies that it is a very common phrase throughout the gray zone. He explains that nobles and knights are like shepherds and sheepdogs who guide and protect the sheep that serve them. That is enough to convince Turan that his mother must have come from somewhere around the gray zone, since he never once heard that saying back in the desert. Pulling out the sketch of his mother, he asks the guard if he knows a woman named Vi. Although the guard does not recognize her, he suggests they could always ask the townspeople instead. Looking at the grown man who is practically on the verge of tears, our hero realizes it would be impossible to keep searching for his mother before saving this city. With that in mind, he tells the guard that he will protect the city, but there is no way he is becoming its lord. The man's watery eyes instantly light up with joy after hearing that. Turan quickly reminds him that it only means he will stay until either a new lord arrives or the mysterious threat is taken care of. After that, he steps onto a stage where the entire city has gathered to hear him speak. The guards loudly celebrate that their messiah has arrived to save the city. One resident mutters that the guy does not look all that impressive, while another jokes that looking pretty is not exactly going to scare monsters away. The guards immediately clap back at the buffoons for spewing complete bullshit. Turan, however, understands exactly where they are coming from. He knows they are not trying to insult him, but are simply keeping their expectations low so they will not get crushed if things go south. Before he traveled across the continent, he used to think showing off was nothing more than vanity. Now he realizes that showing overwhelming power is exactly what makes ordinary people feel safe. So he decides to give the locals a little surprise with some pyromancy. A flashy fire show should be enough to satisfy them since there has not been a wizard around for a long time. He compresses the flames into a single blazing sphere before launching it into the sky, where it releases all of its energy in a massive explosion. The violent gusts from the blast can even be felt all the way down on the ground. As the sky becomes covered in flames, the residents regain their hope and cheer for their new protector. Turan figures that should finally settle everything, but he could not be more wrong. Inside the town hall, the higher-ups keep yapping over each other as every one of them demands their own problem be handled first. Our hero quickly realizes this circus is not ending unless he steps in himself. He declares that he will secure enough food while everyone else focuses on the city's other problems. One of the leaders immediately asks how he plans to pull that off, so he explains that he will herd every animal in the surrounding area straight into the city. They can salt the meat for winter, and maybe even use some of it in soups and stews. The guard is completely baffled that a noble wizard would use his powers for what he sees as peasant work. In response, he points out that nobles in the north often use lightning magic on fields to make the soil more fertile, so helping herd animals is not all that different. The scene shifts to him riding the Black Eagle above the nearby Rocky Mountains. From up there, the shepherd wizard spots several mountain goats and uses his magic to guide them toward the city walls and keep them gathered there. Within hours, the residents can only stare in shock as herds of goats walk in herds right up to the city gate. They begin questioning the abilities of former lords who could never pull off something like this, and Turan quickly gets hyped up as the greatest wizard they have ever seen. The residents immediately get to work turning the animals into meat and leather. When the city's protector returns, his first order is for the guards to open the lord's estate to everyone who lost their homes. The guard is stunned by that decision and asks where he plans to stay instead. He explains that the town hall is already comfortable enough and even has warm beds. Before long, stories about the shepherd wizard who cares for every need of his people start spreading. However, he does not care about fame or titles, because his real goal is to stabilize the city so he can use his influence to search for clues about his mother. News of Turan of Calamap soon spreads to nearby cities. The messenger from Biggin Castle explains that it is unusual for Turan to declare himself a protector rather than a lord. The white-haired lord curiously asks about the protector's age, and remarks that 20 is far too young for someone in such a position. At Balin Castle, the Lord's advisor reports a rumor that the Protector supposedly covered the entire city's sky in fire. While it sounds exaggerated, the Lord assumes that someone with that much power at such a young age must have trained since childhood. Meanwhile, at Castle Haran, the Lord is irritated that the new Protector appeared at the same time as Arabion's army and ended up taking control of an abandoned city through pure luck. He goes full racist and says the Zahar surname fits Turan's name perfectly. He theorizes that Turan is a child prodigy from the Zahar family and wonders if they should send a message. In the end, they decide to leave it alone because interfering with their higher-up's secret plan would only cause problems. Back in Calamap, the Protector is already fed up with accidentally ruling over the city. He also learns that the Gray Zone has 8 cities and hundreds of villages. He cannot even be sure his mother came from this region, even if he searched every single one of them. Just then, a guard enters his office and reports that there is a new lead on the woman he has been searching for. Unlike the last false lead, a traveler named Egon claims he once knew a woman who looked exactly like the one in the sketch and says she stayed at his inn for one night 18 years ago. The moment our hero hears the timeline, he realizes this could finally be the lead he has been waiting for. Sometime later, he calls in the homeless-looking man named Igon, who gratefully says he would have starved on the streets if his savior had not brought food back to the city. Putting the flattery aside, Turan asks Igon to tell him everything he knows about the woman. Igon explains that it happened a long time ago when he proudly owned an inn. Back then, the city of Calamap was completely messed up because of the Great War, and the residents lived every day in fear without knowing who would rule over them next. He remembers that during those chaotic days, a woman who looked heavily pregnant arrived and only stayed for a single night. He still cannot forget that beautiful lady, who also had a well-groomed, expensive-looking horse and was traveling alone with a child. What seemed even stranger was that she looked like she was running from something truly awful. He curses the absolute deadbeat who abandoned such a pretty woman in a situation like that. Turan asks why he is so sure the father abandoned her. Egon repeats the heartbreaking words she spoke during dinner. Putting a hand on her belly, she told her son to never become a man like his father. That is all the proof Turan needs, and he becomes convinced he finally has a real lead on his mother. Igon remembers that the woman later asked him which direction west was, but she was not a local because she did not even know the names of the nearby cities. In fact, he thought her horse was not a breed found anywhere in the region. It was so rare that he locked the stables to keep someone from stealing it. Later that night, our Protector feels like he might be getting ahead of himself, but there is just no way that woman is not his mother. He struggles to push aside his mother's harsh words about his father and keeps wondering what she really meant. Seeing him so troubled, his bird buddy asks if he is hurting somewhere. The sharp little guy then points out that his master always gets quiet and depressed whenever he talks about Vi. That reminds Turan their soul contract lets the bird feel what he feels. He asks the Black Eagle about his mother, but the poor fluffer says he never had one. The master and familiar end up sharing a heartfelt moment over the fact that neither of them has a mother. A few moments later, the Black Eagle completely catches him off guard by writing that his name will be Vi from now on. Since his master is sad when Vi is not around, he will become Vi instead. Bro tells the bird brain that he cannot replace his mom just by stealing her name. Besides, names are something you should decide after giving them a lot of thought. The Black Eagle stubbornly insists he really thought hard and long about choosing Vi. Turan can only surrender and lets the bird keep the name, while the bird happily dances around like GTA 6 finally dropped. With that settled, he tells Vaya he has high expectations for him. He then walks over to the window because break time is over. Grabbing onto Vi's claws, the Protector heads out for another patrol around the city. Every resident below stops to cheer the moment they spot their savior flying overhead, praying that he will protect Calamap forever. Hearing that only motivates our guy to make sure he does not stay around long enough for everyone to start dumping endless responsibilities onto him. He dashes across the snowy sky, determined to never settle down in one place. During the flight, he searches the surrounding area for any traces of magic. He is surprised to find absolutely nothing, which makes him think the Dark Elves might no longer be here. That sounds like good news until he starts thinking about everything that could go wrong if he cannot find them. It is easy to deal with an enemy he can see, but there is no way to wipe them out if they retreat now and come back with a nasty surprise later. Just then, he suddenly picks up a powerful magical signal in the distance. The magic is more than twice as strong as his own, and it could be a wraith. As he thinks that, the mysterious entity suddenly starts rushing toward him at incredible speed. His eyes widen when he realizes it noticed his presence from that far away, so he immediately orders his familiar to get the hell out and head south. However, the distance closes within seconds, and Turan is stunned to see a red-haired girl he recognizes all too well. Floating mid-air, Mesa casually asks how life has been treating him. She is surprised by how much he has changed over the few months they have been apart. Completely clueless, he asks what is so different about him, so she takes a moment to think. If she had to describe it in one word, he looks more grown up. His familiar tugs on his cloak and asks who the goth redhead is, so he introduces Mesa as a close friend who is basically family. Seeing an intelligent familiar that can actually write leaves Mesa amazed, and our boy proudly brags that the bird was the one who chose to serve him. Hearing that, Mesa gets jealous and wishes she had one too. Anyways, he asks why she is traveling through such distant lands when something dangerous is lurking around the area. Mesa falls silent for a moment before admitting she might actually be the reason. A necromancer escaped from prison when Arabian laid siege to an underground kingdom. Although she cannot say for certain, she strongly suspects he came to this region to build up a supply of wraiths and is hiding somewhere in the dwarf settlements deep within the mountains. The moment he hears the dwarfs mentioned, he remembers the blind dwarf race from the legends. Mesa confirms their settlements lie so deep within the mountain range, it is nearly impossible to reach them. Setting that aside, she is glad she managed to get this close, because going any deeper into the gray zone would only become more difficult. He quickly guesses that's because they are in Zahar territory. With that said, Mesa decides to head out since she still has a duty to fulfill. She flies off after making him promise to tell her all about his travels next time they meet. After she leaves, Vi shyly admits that Mesa's insides would also be a great fit for him. He jokingly says that means the unloyal birdbrain would have picked Mesa over him if he had met her first. Va immediately bows in respect and swears he is far happier with his master, insisting Mesa never stood a chance. On a more serious note, Turan starts wondering why the Black Eagle only calls his and Mesa's bloodlines a good match. Back at the city, he returns to his office. One of the guards immediately informs him that several nearby nobles have come to meet him. A whole group arrives on the same day, and the joint delegation politely greets the protector of Calamap. Before he welcomes them inside, he asks that one person speak for everyone and explain the reason for their visit. An old man steps forward as their representative and straight up announces that the 7 surrounding cities have come with a marriage proposal. They offer their daughters as his concubines, promising they have both beauty and refinement to give him a happy family life. As any normal guy would, our boy suspects this is an obvious thirst trap to control him. Another lord speaks up and says he would gain command over their countless knights, and that mixing bloodlines is the best way to strengthen their alliance. Without changing his expression, Turan flat out rejects the group marriage proposal. Instead, he makes them a counteroffer. He wants them to search for clues about a certain woman who traveled through the gray zone 20 years ago. He will hand over all of Calamap to whoever brings him the most valuable information. The old man's soul practically leaves his body as he asks if Turan really values clues about one woman more than an entire city. Turan adds one final condition, saying the next ruler must promise absolute protection for the people. Otherwise, he will cancel the deal and take the city back. Another noble asks why he keeps going so far for the people when he has already done more than enough. That question brings a smile to his face because, in the end, he still has the heart of a shepherd. Sitting atop a tower while watching over the city, he believes a shepherd's duty is to protect his sheep from the wolves lurking in this cruel world. Just then, his attention is drawn to a massive mana signature that seems even stronger than a knight. It surprises him that this outsider manages to sneak all the way to the town hall without getting caught. Realizing it is dangerous to leave the stranger alone, he jumps from the tower and dashes through the streets. The moment he reaches the outsider and calls out to him, the man turns around with yet another familiar face. Turan's face lights up with joy to finally meet Old Man Kiorn again.